first-generation immigrants. This leaves us with the preposterous position of saying that a Jew who came to the Yishuv in 1920s, fleeing Polish persecution, is a colonizer, but an Egyptian or Syrian or Iraqi Arab that came to Haifa in the 1940s seeking work is a local indigenous resident of the land.
Okay. Since your friend is not going to go, it will be Yazan next. Yeah, 4-minute counter whenever you're ready. It'll be Yazan.
Yeah, okay. No worries. So the claim that Palestinian Arabs are not indigenous to the land is absolutely preposterous. So far to the point that, along with genetic studies, as well as recognition by the United Nations itself, which is the head organization that fathered this bastard state known as Israel, we know all too well that the Palestinian Arabs of today are indeed indigenous and native to the land, tracing back to DNA as far back as the Golden Age, the Bronze Age populations that existed at the time. Ironically, of course, it is ahistorical and a-religious of the Jews themselves to claim that the Canaanites themselves are not indigenous to the land. And of course, the descendants of the Canaanites would happen to be the Palestinians of today. We have numerous studies to indicate this, as well as, for example, Zionist, or former Zionist, I should say, Dr. Nathan Pearson, who is a Jewish geneticist, revealing significant data on the genetic diversity in modern-day Palestinians, as well as the Israeli Jewish population. So I'm sorry to burst your bubbles for the Zionists, but the average Palestinian has more of an inherent claim to the land by means of DNA alone than the average Ashkenazi who was poured in from the later Aliyahs of the 20th century. We don't simply play the claim of I am owed this land just because of my race. However, if we do play that claim, then unfortunately the Palestinians are going to come out on top as who has more ethnic or genetic tie to the land itself. Only the Jewish Zionist population is as deluded enough to make the claim that we deserve a particular lot of land simply on the basis of maybe by a shot in the dark, some sort of claim, some sort of genetic ties to previous populations in the Levantine area. However, this will be further debunked as we go into our further analysis with data. And I don't even need the rest of the time, to be honest. We can go ahead and move forward for the cross-examination after Jihadist's opening statement.
Okay, perfect. And that's exactly 2 minutes. So Jihadist, if you want to take your 2 minutes as well, since he doesn't have his partner to counter anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that I find it extremely egregious that the opponent, Elijah, who is not in attendance, unfortunately trapped opponent Kamikaze into saying this argument, which is a little bit faulty. Namely so that by the understanding of biblical terminology in which Elijah, who is supposed to be part of the debate, would simply put that the Jews themselves are not indigenous to the land. They were from Egypt, and they went and they fought the Canaanites. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, and historically proven, they were slaughtered and genocided for the Jews to settle in that area of the land. In what way are they indigenous? They're not indigenous. They're all from Egypt. And when it comes to the later terms in which they claim that the Palestinians are not indigenous to the land, it's egregious. I've posted a study in the Palestine v. Israel channel, which directly denotes two factors. The first factor that it denotes is that, simply put, that the Palestinians are descendants of the Canaanites, and the Jews that were actually present on the land are closer to the Canaanites. None of the Jews that are currently present in Israel, by vast majority, are actually related to any of these groups. They all come from European backgrounds. If you go ask a Jew about tragedies that have occurred to their people, and you ask them where have they occurred, not a single one would ever mention Israel or Palestine or the Levant or anywhere closely related to that location. The Holocaust did not take place in Israel; it took place in Germany. The eradication of Jews in Ukraine did not take place in Israel; it took place in Ukraine. The eradication of Jews in Eastern Europe did not take place in Israel; it took place in Europe, and it took place in Russia. So I find it very egregious that the Jews would tend to claim that the Palestinians are not indigenous to the land when they themselves admit in their own scripture and in accordance with their own comprehensions and in accordance with their own historians that they are not indigenous to the land. Furthermore, proven by geneticists from a neutral side that the Jews are not native to the land, And this is even further more complicated by the understanding of modern terminology in terms of their so-called oppression. Because when we investigate the areas of where they were oppressed, none of them would manage to reroute themselves back to the Middle East. All of them are from Europe. There's even a study on this, and I will be posting it momentarily, in which the majority of Jews who are living in Palestine or living in modern-day Jerusalem do not even have the genetic prerequisites of the average Palestinian. They are more likely to suffer from the effects of the sun and suffering from things such as skin cancer, which is a trait that is not very common among Semites.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna have a 20-minute cross-examination, and Kamikaze can start that out.
Yeah, no worries. So to clarify, I have done no preparation on this specific topic. This was Elijah's baby, this specific topic. In my opinion, I don't think this is a particularly important question. But again, it's very unfortunate that he wasn't here. I hope there's a very good reason he isn't. Yeah, I mean, we can discuss this if you want. If you have any specific questions, I can try and answer them. But again, this isn't my area of expertise.
Yeah, so I mean, Yazan and Jihadist, if you want to ask them a few questions, you guys can go ahead and do so.
Well, yeah, I do have a question. If you were yourself were not prepared for this, would you then be fine with conceding this point towards us? Since clearly, to me, it seems not only egregious, but not backed up by facts at all, and I haven't seen a single source from your side.
Yeah. So one of the issues is obviously I'm just not in a position to concede the point. It's in terms of, like, I'm obviously willing to say, like, I'm not willing to argue it, but unfortunately the reality is I just don't know enough to concede one way or the other.
Okay, well, okay, we could go based off evidence. If you are, let's assume that then, because it's not your argument, you maintain some form of neutral stance on the topic since you don't know much about it. Would you, if you would be just so kind to take a look at the chat that we posted, would you mind explaining to me why the average quote unquote indigenous Jew of the land, i.e. the Israeli citizens of today, have more risk of skin cancer than they do to the Arabs who are indigenous to the land? Wouldn't that entail some form of genetic factor in which they are not actually from the land?
Not necessarily, no. Genetics is obviously a complicated topic. Again, not my area of expertise.
I hate to butt in, but I'd like to say that I think this point should be argued by the person who presented it, and I don't think we should be taking any claim to their arguments or even conceding the point for them, because they're not here to debate it. And I think we should kind of move on from that point. If this is going to be the case, I don't think we should be arguing other people's arguments if we don't know what they're arguing.
Well, you know? with all due respect, right? It isn't a fault of ours. So we came prepared with our stasises, and so what we're saying is we intend on proving this point, regardless of the presence of Elijah or not. What I'm saying is you are more than welcome to defend his entailed positions as to whether you want to or you do not want to. But we will take our time with the time that we have been allotted to truly do explain why Elijah's point just simply wouldn't hold up with the explanation of science, studies, peer-reviewed academic journals, and the understanding of the Jews themselves in accordance with their own historicity.
I'm certainly willing to ask you questions. I'm sure that you can. Sorry. With regards to like genetics and this sort of stuff, my understanding, again, this is a fledgling understanding, is that when it comes to like focusing down specifically where each individual person comes from, genetic factors aren't going to be as specific as what you're trying to entail here. Obviously, it is the case that Arabs come from the Middle East for the most part. This is obviously the case, but narrowing it down to specifically like the areas that constituted like British Mandate Palestine, I think this might be pretty difficult to do just with genetics specifically.
I mean, we do have you know, an enormous amount of studies that do show you know, the Palestinian side as far as indigeneity relating to you know, DNA that correlates with Canaanite populations of the Bronze Age, and even other Levantian ethnicities and groups that have existed in the land for millennia. I would like to ask you both, do you believe that it is justified? I know you guys were more interested in the legality aspect, but do you believe it's justified for a people's, particularly of a race or ethno group, to claim a land on the basis of a potential residing of the land in the past. Just for example, like the equivalent example would be me saying, I'm Arab, right? Therefore, I deserve, and I'm entitled to, along with all my compatriots, a specific lot of land, let's say in Yemen or maybe even Jordan. Because essentially that's the Zionist claim, and at least that's the one that's parroted most popularly today, that the whole reason as to why this particular land was chosen on the backs of Palestinians is simply on the basis of race and alleged historicity, and then potentially indigeneity. Do you believe that's actually justified?
Obviously, so to answer your question, I don't think that it's a really good reason to settle a specific area. I have no delusions with regards to like the history of like Zionism, the history of the Israeli government, and I obviously don't support every single move has ever happened, but it is a historical fact that the justification given by the Zionist movement, at least in part, is the indigeneity argument. I just think that with regards to what I'm interested in, specifically international law, this obviously falls flat.
Right. So with that,
and again,
said,
as I tried to sort of make clear in my opening statement, the important thing here is getting to a situation where we actually manage to have like a peaceful solution, where the people who are in a situation now actually manage to live in such a way where everyone's happy.
I wholeheartedly disagree, because I've never seen a case in which a colonialist group and resistance movement are somehow forced into making peace with each other and living amongst each other. It seems to me that it's very, very hypocritical for one to point at areas such as South Africa and say, no, they're allowed to govern themselves. You look at Hong Kong and say, nope, they're allowed to govern themselves. And you look at all these scramble for Africa countries and you go, well, nope, they're allowed to govern themselves. But when it comes to the case of Palestine, nada. We'll forget the science. We'll throw the studies out the window. We'll throw the genealogy out the window. We'll throw the genetic studies out the window. We'll throw the academic papers out the window. We'll throw any form of credible claim against us outside of the window and just proclaim that somehow we do not have an argument nor we're willing to defend it. And what I'm going to assume, and I know it might be hasty of me, but I genuinely do believe this, and I am going to say it, I genuinely believe that Elijah didn't show up because he knew he wouldn't be able to defend the very first point. And so he stuck it on you guys. And so what I'm saying is just simply put the following. If we do take a look at their own historicity, you would agree with me that the Jews themselves went and they destroyed the Canaanites. Would you concede to this? Yes or no?
No, I have no idea. That is not something I'm aware of. You can obviously make the claim, but you don't have anyone here who's like capable of pushing back on you. And so I would be wary as an audience member of just accepting wholesale anything given that's obviously not able to be pushed back on. Furthermore, I don't appreciate the statement about Elijah. I have no idea why Elijah is here, but I'm confident that the reason that he's not here is probably a good one.
Is Elijah not a Jew? Yes or no?
Elijah is Jewish.
Okay. In Deuteronomy, yeah, were the Jews not ordered by God to expel the Canaanites? Yes or no? And attack them and slaughter their children and slaughter their animals?
I'm unsure.
You are unsure?
Okay, I'm unsure.
My opponent seems extremely unprepared on this topic, but the answer would be yes. As a matter of fact, it specifically says, let no one be spared. Even donkeys were killed, and even camels were killed. Livestock that did absolutely nothing. They still ended up getting killed, right? And so my question would be, is that if the Jews were not there in the first place, what gives them right over the land? As far as I'm concerned, they were not indigenous. They came there, caused a massive genocide, and then said the land was theirs, right? And it's very common of these colonialist cases to proclaim that somehow that they maintained the right to live on the land, just like the Americans did with the Native Americans. They came, they colonialized the land, killed a bunch of Native Americans, and now it's painted as, oh man, it sucks to suck, but we can't really make an argument because the
unfortunate case of the matter,
we need to live here happy together. And what we're saying is, no, there needs to be some form of capitulation. There needs to be some form of capitulation in which the Israeli apartheid state needs to acknowledge that their own foundation of finding the state is simply erroneous and unfounded. They are not indigenous.
So we're obviously going to disagree on the point as to whether or not it is an apartheid state. But just to be very, very clear, the fact of the matter is that colonial states existed, and it is the case that there are people who live, specifically I'm thinking about the Aboriginals in Australia, and obviously the Native Americans who live in nations that were founded on colonialist ideas. I don't think that these people have a right to a state, like an independent state. I don't think this is necessarily mimicked in the case of Israel-Palestine. I think in terms of solutions, if I was talking to things that I'm partial to, something very similar to a 1967 border would be appropriate. It's just a question of how we get there. I think when it comes down to it, at least the three specific points that I was talking about in my opening statement are incredibly important positions of fact to discuss, because at the end of the day, allegations that are not in line with international law interrupt and intervene in getting to a reasonable solution.
Kamikaze, I just want to ask you real quick, on what accords do you believe the 1967 borders are justified, being that Palestinians had owned over 66% of the entirety of the land in 45 alone? Let's get to 47 and 48 borders first, before we skip to 67, right? 67 is actually garbage. The only reason we're advocating for it is because it seems to be the most attainable, and what Hamas advocates for today,
that would be my argument. My argument would be something along the lines. I'm not particularly interested in justice. I think justice is an unattainable thing in this situation. When it comes down to it, the most appropriate solution seems to be something around the 1967 borders. It seems that the international community agrees with this. 1967 borders with land swaps seems to be the primary push and focus. And I think that's probably around correct in terms of a sustainable ongoing solution that will end up better for everyone than obviously ongoing conflict.
No, it wouldn't. Would you deny that the apartheid state in South Africa was not peacefully derelicted and moved away without the harm of the quote unquote white people that were colonializing the native indigenous people in South Africa? Yes, the answer would always be yes.
Comes down to,
so with that being said,
yeah, it wasn't a question. Okay.
The answer would always be yes. And what I'm saying is just simply put. And it was a genuine question, but if you were gonna say no, I would just think that extremely egregious, because essentially you'd be saying just white supremacy is somehow equivalent.
Unfortunately,
somehow could reach peace with
South Africa, and we will be, I'm sure, touching this on later on in the debate. The comparison between South Africa and Israel in this respect with regard to apartheid is not an accurate comparison.
It is 100% an accurate comparison.
It's not an accurate comparison.
Because the UN has provided. Yes, it is, and I'll explain to it. Right? If you were ignorant of the history, I'd appreciate if you
if you want to have this discussion, we can wait until we actually deal with it in the following question.
May I finish, please? Thanks. Right? Look, you not being able to answer the question is not an excuse for you to interrupt the conversation. So, what I'm telling you is something very simple. I'm saying it is 100% the same thing, because the UN provided the same value sets as this in terms of the apartheid state. You think South Africa wasn't offered a two-state solution? They did offer a two-state solution, right? But it all broke down when they proceeded to jail Nelson Mandela for around 23 years, and the ANC proceeded to riot. The ANC committed the same attacks that Hamas did. They went and bombed government buildings. They went and bombed judiciary buildings. They went and bombed the parliament. Right? But on one case, you would sit there with pom-poms cheering Nelson Mandela, but in this case, you take off the pom-poms and call Hamas terrorists.
Well, I don't cheer any violations of international law.
Do you call Nelson Mandela a terrorist?
I'm unaware. I think Nelson Mandela, I believe, was a terrorist. Yes. He specifically broke international law, and I don't support the breaking of international law. That being said, the apartheid regime was particularly in South Africa was particularly egregious, and is the bedrock of the apartheid conventions that we know today. But this was a very specific implemented system of racial discrimination that was built on very clear policy lines. This is incredibly dissimilar to what is happening in the British Mandate Palestine region. Is incredibly dissimilar, considering the fact that this is an ongoing conflict and there are obviously occupied territories. When it comes down to treatment of peoples in the land, it's not discrimination on the basis of race. Obviously, 20% or roundabouts of Israeli citizens are Arabs. These people are treated effectively the same in terms of the law. To other Israelis. When it comes down to it, you need to understand that in occupied territories there is a separate set of international standards that are applied.
Yeah. So just so we're real quick, Jihad.
I just wanted to say, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say we are gonna get into the meat of this in the apartheid section. So I think it would be best to leave it for the apartheid section. We probably don't want to use up all 36 minutes of this section. Yeah, if there's 5 minutes left, then I think we'll leave the rest of it to the apartheid section. We'll get into the indigeneity aspect on one last thing, which is just to pick off where Jihadist left off on the according to what Elijah and Orthodox Jews believe. Kamikaze, if we prove to you, for example, just with a simple few verses and like the common Orthodox belief, that the Jews do accept, as far as the religious ones, accept that their introduction to the land and its origin is literally based on like a ethnic cleansing genocidal event known as the wiping out of the Canaanites. Would you not at least admit that, with that being said, the Orthodox Jews who are taking this position of Zionism or claiming lack of indigeneity to the Palestinians, or that they themselves are indigenous, are making a completely contradictory claim? Because, again, they themselves are not the originators of the land. They came in on the basis of, literally, according to their own books, a means of ethnic cleansing and genocide. And then they established, and over the course of almost 2,500 to 3,000 years now, the ethnicities have completely been swapped out over and over again with different ruling powers. Then we reintroduced them in the 7th century, by the way, live side by side for 1,400 years while they're having their diaspora. They come back in the late 19th century, 20th century with Aliyahs and all this whole propagandist movement that we deserve this because we are indigenous. So, I mean, I would at least expect you, Kamikaze, to say, look, I'm not religious, but if that is the perspective of the Orthodox Jewish belief, this clearly is, hypocritical in nature, to claim that they have indigeneity at all.
I do think it would be inappropriate. I'm obviously not religiously Jewish, and I don't have expertise in the area. When it comes down to it, this would be like asking someone who has no background in mathematics, for example, to have a look at a specific formula and ascertain whether or not this proves or does not prove, say that P equals MP or something like this. I just don't have the background to discuss this, to accept or reject the argument.
Does your partner, Zionist Chimpy, who has been quiet as a mouse as of the last 30 minutes, want to say anything on the matter? Because we'd expect some material to end this section off. Zionist Chimpy, do you have anything to say as far as indigeneity goes, or are we just going to go ahead and skip past this? You guys can check the VC text, by the way, with the overwhelming data that we've posted on genetic reviews and studies regarding the Palestinian Arabs.
Yeah, I had about roughly 2 minutes to prep for this, so I'm not well read exactly deep into exactly what questions I'd be engaging in. So.
No problem.
Zionist,
in regards to this one, I'm gonna have to.
Are you you're Jewish, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, you've read into the Old Testament, right?
Yes.
In the Torah.
Yes.
Can you tell me what Joshua did? What's Joshua most notable for?
Oh man. Okay. Oh man, I'm not prepared for this shit. Okay, give me a second.
This is something you're taught from an early age, Zionist Chimpy.
Yeah, I'll help you out. Joshua is known for ransacking the Canaanites when God ordained him to attack them. Correct? And if I recall correctly, he said, "Spare no animals, spare no man, spare no woman, because they all disobeyed God." Right? Would you say that the Canaanites were indigenous to the land then?
Man, going right off of that, I can't, brother. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I can give you my understanding of what happened around that area period of time.
I was talking to Zionist, please.
Sure, he said that he wasn't sure as well.
I'm unsure.
My understanding is that at the very least, the Jewish peoples of this specific time were also descendant from the Canaanite peoples. To make them separate seems to be incorrect in my understanding, but again, I'm not 100% sure. It's incredibly difficult, unfortunately, to defend this point when, again, Elijah was the one who was really keen on this specific point, really pushed it through, and was the one who was doing it. So.
Right. So then why did you feel the need to list it out as an argument if you're not willing to defend it out of ignorance?
To be clear, I didn't list it out as an argument. I did kind of expect Elijah to come in last minute. I was going to send a message to say, hey, I'm not sure if we want to actually take this first thing, but I'm willing to let you guys talk about what you guys believe on this specific topic, and I think we've done that.
Yeah.
No problem. We'd highly recommend everybody to check the VC texts. We've posted a plethora of evidence regarding the DNA. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
we're
so-
done with this section though.
This section
Sure.
we'll just end it off on a note because
Yeah.
clearly the opposition is not ready for the debate
Yeah.
despite listing it at the beginning,
Oh.
and as well as them not having any preparatory evidence. But everyone is more than welcome to check Palestine v. Israel
Yeah.
text chat, in which we posted all of the
Yes.
evidence to prove indigenous.
It's because the person who
indigeneity
made
of
the point for it
of
is not
the
here.
of the Palestinians to the land as compared to the Jews, which I'm surprised because, well, my opponent being a Jew does not even know his own scripture.
Right.
Okay, so we're just gonna move on
I'm
from
just-
here. We're
I'm
gonna
just-
go to the Yazan and Jihadist positive claim. Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing and has been actively engaging in it ever since. So we're gonna do 4 minutes from Yazan whenever you're ready.
All right. In this section, we'll be making the positive claim that Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing and has been actively engaging in it since. The foundations of this treacherous regime can be traced back to the late 19th century to early 20th century. I should put it up here. Following the proposals and propaganda fathered by Theodor Herzl. Herzl was a secular Jew that had found a way to weaponize Judaism as well as the Jewish diaspora in order to build an ethnocentric based state that would secure the goals and interests of himself, along with many Jews around the world. In order to secure the success of the Zionist movement in Palestine, the indigenous population would have to be addressed, i.e. the Palestinian Arabs. The Palestinian Arabs were already familiar with the experience of living side by side with the Jewish Palestinians. And yes, they did identify as Palestinians at the time. Palestinian does not necessitate an ethnic group, rather a title to a people who hail from from the specific land of Palestine. This is obviously due to the presence of Jews being re-established in the 7th century upon the conquest of Jerusalem, where Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu reintroduced the Jews into the land upon the surrender of the land from the Cardinal Sophronius. Arab Muslim leadership in particular was already a safe haven for Jews throughout the centuries. Of course, this did not matter as the goals of Zionism were now priority for many parties abroad. Despite this, despite the Palestinian innocence when it came to Jewish persecution, the West favored the idea of Zionism as not only would it compensate the Jews for the long-standing domestic issues they had with them, also drive the Jewish population out of their own lands and kind. Furthermore, the West would have a new ally in a new land of interest, i.e. the Middle East. Many also had pseudo-religious motivation for the creation of this new Jewish state. Regardless of the motivation, the Palestinian Arabs would need to suffer the cost of creating such a state, despite already owning the majority of the land itself. From policies set in place by the earliest Zionist organizations to breaking of promises by the British Mandate, to the terrorization enacted by the Haganah, the Lehigh, and the Urgun, to the massacres and policies of ethnic cleansing in the 1947 era, to the Nakba, to the illegal settler colonial movement in the occupied territories taking place still today, the Palestinians know all too well what the meaning of ethnic cleansing is. This terrorist bastard state, as I will call it, was founded as a unique settler colonial project and continues to act in the same manner as it always has, replacing a native people with one that is less indigenous and terrorizing the population to break away from their homes. I probably have more time. Go ahead, though.
Okay, Jihadist, you have 4 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yep. Okay. So, in order to get to the heart of the matter as to how Israel was founded to be an apartheid state, straight from the conception all the way down until today, we'll have to take a look at the historical and political context. A thing in which my opponents, time and time again, repeat that they are not well informed on the historicity of the same state that they are defending. Well, Israel was first established in 1948, following the United Nations partition plan, which intended to create a separate Jewish and Arab states in the territory then known as Palestine, underneath the brokering of the British Mandate, in which the British Mandate has explicitly said that the Jews would be living under Palestinian protection. Following the declaration of the State of Israel, the Irgun and the Lehigh broke out a war against its Arab neighbors. During this period and its aftermath, significant amounts of oppression, genocide, and acts of crimes against humanity has been committed by these specific groups, in which even today the State of Israel considers them a terroristic group, despite having statues resembling their figures and statues resembling their logos, such as the logo of the Lehigh salute, which is a fascistic salute that was inspired by Hitler's Nazi salute. This event was specifically called the Nakba by the Palestinians, to signify the amount of Palestinians that were displaced from their homes by the Irgun and by the Lehigh. When it comes to them establishing laws that support their apartheid state and their apartheid regime is that since its establishment, they have implemented various laws that critics unanimously argue that institutionalizing segregation and discrimination against the Palestinians in Gaza is necessary for, quote unquote, their freedom and their protection. Example of such laws include those pertaining to land ownership and citizenship. For example, the law of return that was established in 1950 grants Jews worldwide the right to return to Israel and to gain citizenship. But no such right is extended to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1948 in any of the genocides, village attacks, or the war that has broke out. Neither was it presented to the Palestinians in 1967. But if a Jew in Turkey, or a Jew in Germany, or a Jew in Poland, or a Jew in Ukraine has a nail that even enters his toe, it's time for him to pack up and go to Israel. Because God forbid he gets hurt. We'll take a look now at the land and property laws. Israeli laws regarding land and property have been contentious. For example, the absentee property law in 1950, which was defined as anyone who had left his property to go to an Arab state during the Arab-Israeli War is an absentee. And the property of the absentees could then be appropriated by the state. Now, the issue is that when you do not have enough land to appropriate these absentees, what ends up happening? They turn them into colonizers, or as they like to call them, settlers. Obviously, as we all know, settlers do not come with guns. Settlers come with flags and food for themselves, which they did not. They came with guns and kicked the Palestinians out, in which even the individual on my profile picture, who is a prolific writer by the name of Kanafani, Ghassan Kanafani, was displaced from his own home and had to write about it. And when he was displaced, there was no justice for him. There was no right of land for him. There was no right of absentee for him. Nada. As a matter of fact, they just said, oh, he's anti-Semitic. Why? Because he called for the dissolution of the Zionist Nazi state for discriminating against him as an Arab. Post-1967, Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories, namely the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights, which are illegal under international law, because nowhere in the British Mandate does it say they have right to that land. Nowhere in the UN Mandate does it say they have the right to that land. Not a single international law says they have a right to these lands, including the Golan Heights. The presence of these settlements and the policies governing them, including roads, infrastructure, that cater exclusively to the settler population, not the indigenous, as proven previously in the conversation, Palestinians, is pointed example as to how an apartheid separation and control works. And this 100% fall under the definition of the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid, established in 1976, which defines an apartheid state, or apartheid in general, as an inhuman act committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination of one specific group over a racial group or ethnic group or systematic group by oppressing them using laws.
Okay, I'm assuming that was the end of your statement.
Yep,
So, interestingly, at the final part of the statement, you obviously went into apartheid. You misquoted the definition for apartheid there. Specifically, the definition for apartheid talks. It's specifically racial groups. It's not just groups. As you specifically says, it never says ethnical groups. It never says anything like that. The Apartheid Convention specifically says racial groups. We need to be very, very clear on our definitions in international law. I agree with you. The occupations in occupied territories specifically are illegal under international law. But this does not make ethnic cleansing or apartheid. Again, it is important to keep in mind what the specific definitions are with regards to international law. When it comes to the definition of ethnic cleansing, you will find this in, I believe it's S25274. Specifically, it requires grave breaches and violations of international humanitarian law. Whilst breaches of international law occurred during the settling of Israel, obviously, it is not the case that ethnic cleansing is ongoing. As a matter of fact, the current conflict that is occurring does not constitute ethnic cleansing.
Hey, you said that they do not constitute ethnic cleansing. Could you explain the genocides on the village that was done by the Lehigh and the Aragon?
This would have been a very long time ago. My specific claim is that ethnic cleansing is not ongoing. It may well be the case that ethnic cleansing occurred early on in this conflict by specific people. Obviously, before the creation of the IDF, when we're talking about a whole bunch of like different groups who are all acting like semi-autonomously, there's all sorts of stuff that happened. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not entirely confident to say that it was ethnic cleansing, nor am I confident to say that it wasn't. That being said, the specific question that we were asked to consider today was twofold. Specifically, that it was founded on ethnic cleansing and continues to participate in ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing specifically requires the same dolus specialis that a genocide would, and you would have to, as someone making a positive claim, demonstrate that that dolus specialis exists.
Okay.
In regards to,
I did have just one more question. You stated earlier, if I recall correctly, in the conversation, you can look through the transcript of the recording. You stated that Mandela is a terrorist for violating international law. Yet you right now admitted that Israel violated international law by these settlements, which are entirely illegal. Would you then?
I did not say. I did not. Okay. To be very clear, it may be the case that I misspoke. In the same way that so someone who has committed terrorism is a terrorist. I'm not entirely comfortable with calling any group without the explicit goal of terrorism to be a like terrorist. So the same would go even potentially for Hamas in this scenario.
No problem. So just so we're not kind of pouring in from apartheid to ethnic cleansing here, you said, Kamikaze, that ethnic cleansing.
Well, time is up. We're going to move on to cross-exam now. So you can ask these right now.
Oh, we've sort of moved on naturally to the cross-examination, if that's okay. Yeah.
That was the counter, but now it's the cross-exam. So now 20 minutes, so you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just continue.
No problem. So, according to the founders of the state itself, Kamikaze, we have numerous quotations here from former prime ministers of this whole state that would definitely give a clear-cut basis for ethnic cleansing itself. We have, for example, the quotations from David Ben-Gurion, who himself was a terrorist in the early days, quoting the following through his diaries and various documents. If I were an Arab leader, I would never sign an agreement with Israel. It is normal. We have taken their country. It is true God promised it to us, but how could that interest them? Our God is not theirs. There has been anti-Semitism, the Nazis, Hitler, Auschwitz, but that was their fault? They see but one thing. We have come and we have stolen their country. Why would they accept that? And we have a multiplicity that I'd love to just continue giving. But I would like to ask you, what do you define ethnic cleansing as? As if you cannot concede that it's taken place in the past, we can never get anywhere with the present.
So I would specifically point to, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, the definitions provided in S25274. And the subsequent document, which I don't have the number written down here, that specifically references 25274. So this would be intentional, and the word is intentional, removal of a specific ethnic group from land. Again, and via obviously violations of international law. Sorry, give me a second. So with regards to statements made by previous prime ministers, previous statesmen, etc., I don't see how this is relevant to ongoing ethnic cleansing as a claim. Again, I am agnostic with regards to the claim as whether or not there was ethnic cleansing, like per se, in, let's say, the end of the British Mandate period. And this region. I'm agnostic on this claim. I'm far more interested in the claim of whether or not an ethnic cleansing is currently ongoing.
Okay, so you are agnostic on the idea that Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing. We can just go ahead and provide further sources for that. With the actual creation of the state itself, which I'm not sure if you would count as the modern era, Operation or Plan Dalet is literally an ethnic cleansing policy. We have dozens and dozens of massacres that took place throughout this era, as well as the Nakba, obviously. But if you are agnostic on the past and the foundations, which yet again, I'm very disappointed, and we are very disappointed that you guys are willing to defend the positive claim in its totality. We can just move forward to the modern day policies that would show proof of intent to ethnically cleanse till today. You conceded that the in today in the West Bank there are illegal settlements taking place, but you're somehow saying that they are not intentional. With regards to the 750,000 illegal settlers in the West Bank, are we going to just sit here and pretend that they're accidental and that they're not based on displacing the Palestinians that actually have deeds to their homes in that land? Or what are we exactly talking about here? I'd like to kind of get an understanding from you regarding the situation in the West Bank today with the illegal settlements and how this is not ethnic cleansing.
So I mean, you're just sort of asserting that it is ethnic cleansing without really demonstrating it. Again, the specific claim that you're making is with regards to the Israeli state. There are certainly specific Israelis who have the probably almost certainly the specific intent that's required for all sorts of crimes against humanity, etc. But the specific claim is regards to the state itself. Yeah, so I mean, you have to make the positive argument here.
Okay, so in regards to, for example, how the state endorses the illegal settlers in the West Bank, I could cite you multiple laws that actually give incentives for illegal settlements themselves in the West Bank. I can also cite to you video footage and policy through organizations like, for example, Breaking the Silence, where IDF soldiers themselves are not only ordered to, but also are more than happy to help illegal settlers that are incredibly radical and incredibly antagonizing to the Palestinian people while taking hold of new settlements. Of course, when it comes to making new settlements in the West Bank, most settlers wouldn't be able to do it without some sort of authorization from zoning of the Israeli government. But simply on the basis of the laws that provide incentives for Israelis to go and, for example, make claim to lands in Judea and Samaria or Section C, which is supposed to be in the hands of the PA by now. This is more than sufficient enough evidence to justify the positive claim that ethnic cleansing is taking place till this day and with intent.
No. So with regards to the actual methods used, these are important when it comes to the definition of ethnic cleansing. It's the specific use of, I believe it's terror. That would be important here, terror and violence. When it comes down to specifically settlements in the West Bank, obviously violations of international law, not technically ethnic cleansing. One of the important things, again, with regards to this conversation, is being really specific with the words used. When it comes down to it, it's not ethnic cleansing. It doesn't use the means of ethnic cleansing that we saw all throughout, like fighting in Europe, that obviously like settled the specific name ethnic cleansing. We don't see any of these things in the specific areas that we're talking about. This is just not the case.
Okay. So in regards to the population of Israel themselves, or the Israelis, I should say, in the West Bank, we have a plethora of documented footage of them using terrorist-like actions with weapons that are obviously given by the state and the Israeli army force itself. You would just simply say that the Israeli civilians themselves may be the ones enacting ethnic cleansing, but not the government?
One of the things that excludes this from ethnic cleansing is specifically the fact that Israeli Arabs are allowed to live within Israel. One of the important things to recognize is that there are many people in Israel who identify specifically as Palestinian, who are given full rights as citizens of Israel. When it comes down to it, we can agree again that settlements in occupied territories are indeed against international law, but that does not necessarily constitute ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing is a very specific term, and you must make the argument with reference to this definition as to what's actually happening.
Okay. As defined by the EU here, ethnic cleansing entails rendering an area ethnically homogeneous by using force or intimidation to remove from a given area persons of another ethnic or religious group, which is contrary to international law. And with regards to the West Bank, we do have actively till today, and especially since October 7th, intimidation and force being used by the Israeli settlers in the West Bank to push people literally out of their homes, irrespective of any law or the deeds that the Palestinians own to their homes. If you want proof that the actual government endorses this and funds and arms these settlers, thereby making it a state act. And we're more than happy to provide that. But for you to keep evading the point that there is an ethnic cleansing taking place, it's just going to do us no good. And on the matter of Arabs living in Israel, this is the common cope that I hear from Zionists. There are about 65 different laws, and this is going to pour back into the apartheid section. There are 65 laws that are in place today, according to the Israeli government, under Israeli basic law, a government that has no constitution, that have a level of segregation, both directly and indirectly, towards Palestinians. I'm actually going to cite them here from an organization, called Adala, which is both a Jewish and Arab organization that takes interest in defending rights of Palestinians. We're going to go ahead and post that in the VC text again. We have from tax break laws to land ownership laws, of course, the law of return. We have property issues. We have a plethora of different things that segregate Arabs in Palestine, not only on a civilian level, but even those who participate in the political parties that are there. Just posted the organization website here, which cites 65 different laws that actually segregate Palestinians directly and indirectly from a multiplicity of categories of life. So, I mean, that's just a silly cope regarding just because you have, excuse my language, house Negroes in the fields or at home, that somehow necessitates that you are not being racially or motivated against a particular group or ethnically cleansing the general populace.
So you can hide behind allegations of people being house. I'm not going to say that word. But that's just frankly not the case. With regards to representation all across Israeli society, Arab Israelis are obviously represented. It is the case in many countries, and it continues to be the case in Israel, that minorities are discriminated against, but this is not sufficient either for an ethnic cleansing claim nor an apartheid claim. Otherwise, it would be the case that almost every single country is an apartheid state. When it comes down to it, the significant difference in the treatment between people in Israel and people in the occupied territories is the fact that the occupied territories are occupied territories, that there is an ongoing international armed conflict that is occurring in this region.
Give me 1 moment. I'm just letting the other interlocutors.
I just put down my 7-Up bottle. Sorry, I was consuming a soda beverage. Does not fund Israel, by the way. So, where was I? Yes, I find it very egregious that the opponent claims to be agnostic on the very same matters that he is attempting to defend. Look, I asked a very basic question before, and I feel like it still has not been answered. And that tends to provide as how my opponent is being very disingenuous when it comes to approaching the question as to whether or not hundreds and thousands of Palestinians are dying. He goes, "Oh, well, I think this is bad, and I think that is bad." But then he proceeds to slap on labels on Mandela, but refuses to slap on labels on his beloved Israel. Now, my question is just simply put as follows: What do you make of the genocide that has occurred in the villages under the orders of the Lehi, which are praised and worshipped by individuals like Benjamin Netanyahu? Why are the Israelis protesting at the Israeli government buildings over these actions and over the appraisals of the Lehi within the Knesset and the Israeli parliament? I still did not get an answer to this, other than I'm not sure. I'm agnostic. I need an actual response. Otherwise, I'm not going to be very, very fruitful in terms of engaging in the conversation if I have nothing to reply to.
So you misrepresented things that I've said previously. So I'm going to deal with those very specific things. With regards to Mandela, the reason why I'm willing to call Mandela a terrorist and not Israel a terrorist is on the basis that Israel is a state and Mandela is a person. When it comes down to it, if you are a person who does the war crime of terrorism, you are a terrorist. But that does not necessarily speak to the organizations or states you're a part of. With regards to,
I'm sorry, I just want to ask you on that specific statement. You said you said one individual does not quantify for the state. Would you say ISIS then is a group, is not a terrorist, because it's only certain individuals from ISIS that commit the terror?
I clarified earlier specifically if the intent of the organization is the propagation of terrorism specifically.
That's the intent of Israel.
Then you are a terrorist, but that is not the intent of Israel.
That's the intent of Israel. What is the Lehi Charter?
That is obviously not the case.
Okay, well, let's take a look
The
at the Lehi
Likud is a
together,
specific group inside of the Israeli government.
Yes.
This is not the Israeli government itself. I absolutely condemn the charter, their charter. I don't appreciate their charter at all. I think that what they say is vile. It does not represent
Abraham
the position
Stern.
of Israel itself.
Can you explain why Abraham Stern is then praised as a war hero by modern day Israel?
By some Israelis, yes, obviously.
No, not by some Israelis.
Many.
Hello, you did not hear what I said. I'll repeat it.
So
By the current
I mean,
seated
you
Israeli government.
specifically, you said,
What?
you specifically, sorry, Chimpy, you
Yeah,
go
there are
ahead.
statues.
No,
There
no,
are
no, no.
statues of Abraham Stern scattered all over Israel. Can you explain to me why is Israel then proceeding to build government-funded statues and appraisals of him in public if he is considered a condemnable figure? You're defending a side that doesn't want to defend you. Is my
This
problem.
isn't relevant to the conversation. It's clearly
absolutely
not.
is relevant.
No, it absolutely isn't relevant to the conversation.
It
The
absolutely is
specific
relevant. I'll
question
explain why.
is whether or
I'll explain why
not
it's relevant.
ethnic cleansing is occurring, not whether or not there are people
Are you denying the
praise
Lehi
people who are
engaged in
condemnable.
Do you deny that they let's show you that it's actually very, very, very relevant to the topic, right? And you just simply don't want to defend it because you know it's indefensible. It's a very straightforward question. It's literally a two-part question, and this will show whether my question is relevant or not. Do you deny that the Lehi committed genocide?
I don't believe that the Lehi committed genocide. No, I'm sure
Okay.
that individuals.
So can you explain the
I
slaughter?
believe that individuals inside of that group
So the
committed
Lehi,
genocidal acts. Potentially specific individuals with Dolus Specialis itself. But I do not believe that that group specifically committed genocide.
okay. So can you explain to me why the current Israeli government considers them a terrorist organization?
Wait, you can be a terrorist organization without committing genocide.
Okay,
That's a non
so if
sequitur.
you're no, the reason why I bring that point is because they were called terrorists because of their genocidal acts in villages, like the slaughters that they have occurred in the villages. Do you deny
Wait,
that that's
genocidal
genocide?
acts does not constitute genocide. Genocide specifically requires both act and dolus specialis, the specific intent.
Do you deny that Deir Yassin massacre happened? Yes or no? It's a straightforward question.
People died at Deir Yassin. There was obviously like deaths
Those are
and
my
deaths
questions.
that were like clearly war crimes. But
Yeah, I
any
didn't ask
implication
you
that was
whether people died or
specifically,
not.
well, I'm not going to answer in a yes
I said,
no
do you deny
format.
that the Deir Yassin was a massacre of innocent Palestinians?
Innocent Palestinians died at Deir Yassin. This is clear.
Okay. Now, listen very closely to the following question. Okay? When a massacre is directly perpetrated for, and I quote, what the Lehi and the Ergen have directly listed to be because they are Arabian villagers, okay? To conclude and to show you as to how it's genocide, can you give me now the definition of genocide?
I can look up the specific definition of genocide if you want.
I'll give you it. The definition of genocide
again,
is the deliberate
specifically,
killing.
hold on, just slow down.
The deliberate
Okay, because I
killing.
specifically said there are almost certainly
I'll repeat it.
specific killings that would fall underneath the
Relax.
Genocide Convention.
No,
This
no,
is
what I'm
something that I
telling you,
specifically said.
don't
When it
forget.
comes down to it, the question
Yeah.
must be, and the
Yeah.
relevant question is not whether or not like pre-Israeli
No,
organizations
there's more than three, but
specifically did genocidal acts. That's not the question.
they were
The
approved
question
by the
is
government.
not this. The question is whether or not Israel is participating in an ongoing ethnic cleansing.
they were
That
approved-
is the conversation,
they
and
were
you're trying
approved-
to run away from this because you
they
know
were-
that you
they
can't
were
actually
approved-
prove
they
this.
were approved by
You
the
can't
Knesset.
prove that they are doing
doing
an ongoing ethnic cleansing, nor are they participating in an ongoing ethnic cleansing. Because ethnic cleansing is a specific term that, frankly, you haven't lived up to in this conversation.
Okay, so I appreciate your remarks in terms of attempting to avoid this discussion in order to try and dissuade the fact that the Lehi did not entail genocide, which is currently what I'm proving. So I'll repeat it. The definition of genocide, which you stopped me from saying because it would utterly destroy your point, was the following: the deliberate killing of a large group of people from a particular ethnic group or particular nation with the aim of destroying that nation or group.
Mhm.
Was the Lehi's actions in Deir Yassin sanctioned by the government? Yes or no?
Unsure. The when it comes
Okay.
to the
If I show you that it was
specific aim
sanctioned by the
itself,
government-
so the issue
If
that I
I
was
show
pointing
you-
to was the
if I-
dolus specialis, which you
I said-
specifically just read out.
I said
with
yes or
the
no. I didn't
specific
say- I
aim
didn't say
to
thought for-
destroy the national, ethnical, racial, or religious group.
Yep,
right?
that's crazy.
Each individual action must be looked at in and of itself.
Okay. So you said you're unsure. Now, if I show you that it was, listen very closely, if I show you that it was sanctioned by the government, would you say that the Israeli government has then approved of genocide? Yes or no?
So I get the feeling that what you're going to provide here is a statement from a individual.
I'm going to give you a statement from the Prime Minister of Israel.
Yes, the Prime
and
Minister
a policy
of Israel
that was enacted by the Knesset in which the Lehi is name dropped.
So
wait, so the sanction constitutes genocide? Wait, what?
Yeah, the sanctioning of the Lehi, having them go enter into Deir Yassin and massacring a bunch of innocent Palestinians, absolutely constitutes a genocide. What would you call a massacre of a large group of people? What would you call that, Zionist Chimpy? What's the name for it? If you don't believe it's a genocide, well, give me the term for it. If I go and I massacre a gigantic group of, the intent to eradicate,
massacre of a gigantic group of people. Hold on, a massacre of a gigantic group of people, regardless of how big or small that group of people is.
Kamikaze,
is not necessarily in and of itself genocide.
Kamikaze, listen, you said it yourself 5 minutes ago. You said you're unsure. So can I speak to Zionist Chimpy? Thanks.
I said I was unsure whether there was a specific directive.
So remain unsure while I'm talking to Zionist Chimpy.
Hold on. I've said I was unsure as regards to whether or not there was a specific directive given by like a person in the Israeli government.
Okay.
When it comes down to this is a specific question of international law. And the question, it is required specifically that not only do you have the genocidal act, but you also have the genocidal intent.
Well, yeah. Do you think intent is ascribed by what is written? So if I'm a government and I say, hey, the reason why we're attacking these villages is because we want to remove this entire group of population from here. And by that definition, we're going to send these two specific groups, groups to go in and murder a bunch of innocent Palestinians. And you turn around and you say, oh, well, you know what? You need actual and understanding and actual intent. I say this is more than enough evidence for intent. And I understand your reluctancy in refusing to address the issue of
and we see this time and time again when we have a look. And we see this time and time again when we have a look at actual organizations who are looking at these specific cases, specifically the ICJ. The ICJ, in the opinions proffered in the current genocide case ongoing between South Africa and Israel, specifically discusses this topic. All of the statements provided by South Africa have been stated as not being sufficient to demonstrate dolus specialis. The statements of an individual person does not indicate the intent of a state.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go to the second positive claim now, Kamikaze. So you'll have 4 minutes for the Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yep. So war crimes are specific war crimes are a very broad category of things. These are specifically violations of international law with respect to the law of armed conflict. War crimes can specifically span the distance between the unnecessary destruction of civilian infrastructure with no military goal, to things much more serious, specifically the unnecessary killing of individuals with no military goal. It is incredibly clear that on October 7th, Hamas, after traveling into Israel, committed war crimes. They not only pilfered stores, but they also unnecessarily killed individuals. Even if you consider those individuals to be combatants, this does not justify the killing of people who have already been taken hostage. This is something that happened time and time again on October 7th. We have dash cams footage from all sorts of cameras, specifically showing incidents of people who have been taken hostage, who attempt to escape, and who get shot and killed, even when they have been restrained. These are obvious violations of international law and obvious war crimes.
Okay, your friend can go if he wants to, but I know that he doesn't have anything prepared. So if Yazan or Jihadist want to go next.
Yeah, I'll investigate this claim. What I am to respond to this is just simply put the following. What is to be expected when for the past 100 years you're oppressing a group of people, you attack them, you displace them, you rape them, you commit massive amounts of war crimes with them. You have people like Kamikaze who go around saying, hey, I'm agnostic on the Deir Yassin massacre. We have people like Zionist Chimpy who says the Lehigh is not representative of the Israeli government, even though there are statues of the Lehigh in every corner. Treating them like zoo animals, putting them in open air prisons. What is to be expected from a group that's been pushed to the limits? In my eyes, this is no different from what Nelson Mandela and the ANC did. They've tried every peaceful option, it failed. And when every peaceful option fails, there is nothing left but to resort to violence for the preservation of their own lives. Now, let's not pretend that October 7 is somehow a disconnect from what was previously occurring to the Palestinians. As far as I'm concerned, October 7 was merely a reactionary response to what Israel has been doing. Israel is just as guilty as Hamas in this instance. They are responsible for the same individuals dying. Because had Israel been fair and not violated, and were not in accords with what the ICJ has released, which you could see in the Israel versus Palestine chat, guilty of violating international law, this wouldn't have happened, period. And I'm sure anyone with a right understanding of the conflict would admit this publicly. And there are multiple Zionistic figures who have admitted this publicly, and multiple spokespersons who have defended the Israeli side have admitted this, including individuals like Piers Morgan, which I'm sure Kamikaze religiously takes from, considering he copied all his arguments in this debate.
I think it's my turn, but Zionist Chimpy, if you would again like to contribute to the debate instead of sitting there and breathing air.
Elijah actually has arrived now. So if you don't mind, if we could switch out, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please do.
Chimpy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, please, finally. Bye, Zionist Chimpy. I was about to say, this is kind of like a 2v1 because you've been just sitting here defending all the claims.
Yeah, it has been a 2v1.
And the other guy was not helping your side at all. So it's good to have now, you know.
He's put up his hand in the stage. If you want to pop him up.
Yeah, can someone accept the request?
Let's see. I think I could do it.
Here, I'll try. I'll just accept it.
I invited him to speak.
He's been invited to speak. All he has to do is just accept the invite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all he has to do.
If you want to do your introduction, Yazan, and then Elijah can maybe do something.
I would prefer him to give his opening statement.
That's
unless
okay
it
as
takes
well.
longer than the next 30 seconds, just so that way, because you guys are going to be doing cross-examination on us this time.
Yep,
so that
yeah,
way
of course.
everything's flowing, yeah. Kamikaze, don't ever let Zionist Chimpy help you again.
For anyone who...
I mean, he was the guy who's about, so...
If there's anyone who is interested in all of the sources that we posted, you could find them in Palestine v. Israel. I would also ask Kamikaze if you have any sources as well on what you're claiming, if you could just post them in the Palestine v. Israel so everyone can track,
yeah, no worries.
Everything that we're having.
Look, if you are interested in any of the claims specifically on international law, you can find these fairly easily on. You can either go to the UN website. This will have all of the documents that are being referred to. When I specifically refer to definitions, I do try to state the specific conventions and documents that I am referring to. If you have any specific questions, feel free to message me.
I posted where the UN website calls Israel in violation of several international humanitarian laws, and the primary result of what has occurred, leading all the way.
Elijah,
you gonna accept the? You can apparently press just accept. You should have already been.
There he is.
Oh, here we are.
Hi, Elijah.
All right, there's our Mr. Weinstein, as we're gonna call him. Elijah, you're late. We're gonna put you on the grill for now. If you can give your opening statement, please, Mr. Weinstein.
No, I haven't insulted anyone at all. I'm sure even my opposition Kamikaze can attest to it.
Elijah, you there, mate?
Yes, I'm just got a bad connection.
Elijah, we're on your second positive claim. You want to give your opening statement?
Indigeneity?
No,
No,
we
no,
already
no, that
crossed
was
that,
the first one.
unfortunately.
Okay, obviously that was my plan. Okay, the second positive claim is October 7th. Okay. Well, I'm happy to read this indigeneity at some point, I'm sure. Okay.
Unfortunately, your partners did not fare too well on that one. They were not prepared for it.
Okay, it's a shame. There was the claim on indigeneity is essentially that there's no argument you can make for Arab indigeneity. You can't make for Jewish indigeneity. Literally no argument.
If we have time again, Elijah will cover it. But for now, we're just trying to stay on pace, especially because it's a long debate. So, or stay on track, I should say. So, if you want to get into the second positive claim for now,
I'll jump in as and when. Yep, I'll jump in as and when.
Okay.
All right. I think Elijah's just going to waive his introduction. If you just want to do your thing, Yazan.
Okay. With regards to the claim that
had not such a good day.
Sorry.
Sorry, I've had not such a good day. So.
No, that's all right, mate.
No worries. With regards to the claim from the other side that, that Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th, ironically, we are sincere in our support for Hamas, and also with a clear-cut understanding that Hamas did for sure commit war crimes on October 7th, and that does include hostage taking. Ironically, there are some very rare exceptions for hostage taking, like in the example of the Nuremberg trials that took place post World War II. However, we have no issue with seceding or conceding that Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th. We will, of course, challenge the allegations of intentful terrorism, rape, mass murder, genocidal intent, so on and so forth. We will like to see what our opponents and interlocutors bring forward as far as allegations regarding the war crimes specifically. However, we have no issue with conceding this point. What I would say, of course, is that what do you expect from a population that is crammed in an area 25 miles long, 5 miles wide, under an illegal besiegement, quite literally pressure cooking conditions, to do in retaliation to a state that we have identified throughout this debate as a terrorist-like regime enacting ethnic cleansing and apartheid on the people for 75 plus years now? I see no appropriate response under humanitarian or international law, apart from a very small slither, in response to a country that does not operate under international or humanitarian law. Play dirty, get played dirty back, and that's just the name of the game. You can't handle the heat, IDF, then get out of the kitchen. I mean, that's all we're going to leave it at for now. I would like to see the allegations against Hamas. This is just the opening statement. I'd like to see the allegations against Hamas regarding the crimes committed. But yeah, we can go ahead and go through them.
So this is a 20-minute cross-exam now, I'm assuming?
Sure. It's a bit interesting to start off this question with a concession that obviously our position is correct. It is obviously the case that war crimes were committed. We obviously want to broaden the scope to crimes against humanity specifically. But obviously that's not the topic. The topic is specifically war crimes, and I listed out just a couple, and it seems that you've conceded to those. Yeah, I don't really know where to go from there, actually.
I haven't actually conceded to specifically your allegations, but I have conceded to the general stance that Hamas has committed war crimes. Of course, due to the strictness of international law, there all too little things a nation like Palestine would be able to do in retaliation
Oh,
towards
sure.
Israel.
There
But
are
it depends on the
obviously,
allegations.
yeah, there are obviously things that you can do in international armed conflicts that are absolutely acceptable. Obviously, there has been ongoing conflicts in the region. It is absolutely acceptable for an armed group who's a participant in conflicts to do things, but we must do them inside of international law, specifically the targeting of civilians, the killing of hostages. All of these things are violations of international law, given that there is no military advantage or recognized military advantage to doing them. The LOIC is incredibly clear on this. If October 7th had happened and all that had occurred was Hamas had breached the border and then they attacked specifically military points, which they did do, that would have been absolutely acceptable. Absolutely acceptable, but that's just not the case. Hamas breached the border. They murdered civilians. We have countless allegations of rape that are ongoing, that have been subject to UN reports. We have direct evidence in terms of video cameras that have been placed on dashboards, video cameras that Hamas members themselves wore and distributed media from, that show war crimes committed by these people.
Yeah, so unfortunately, with regards to the specific allegations that you have made, I will not concede to those specific points. Regarding intent to murder or terrorize the population that resided within the kibbutz and southern Israel, I actually see contrary evidence from the Israelis themselves that resided in those areas. Due to the fog of war and the circumstances of October 7th, what we know for certain is that with the breaking of the border, one of the failed, I should say, portions of the operation that Hamas had led was the controlling of the border they broke over. And as a result, as we see, for example, with the analysis of former ex-Marine Corps officer Scott Riddler, one of the main things that Hamas failed to do was control that border, which caused the overflux of Palestinians as well as other jihadist factions that would pour into the southern Israeli borders, or nations, I should say, or region. And with this, you have clearly a lack of fingers to point at, or at least people to identify when it comes to who's attacking who and who's doing what. We have from Al-Qassam's upper echelons, including Muhammad Daif, who has radically changed over the course of years, specific orders to Al-Qassam brigades, who are obviously going to be our main area of focus, to not touch non-combatants, civilians, women, children, elderly, anybody out of uniform. So we don't have intent established. We have a fog of war with the population that came in on October 7th that definitely did cause some tragedies to take place. And as the last point, we also have clear-cut evidence from the Israeli civilian testimony that not only shows the IDF killed their own population to a high extent, but also that clearly Hamas's intent was not to come in and just destroy everybody. As a matter of fact, there was more of a strategic game at play here. We call it a hostage operation. I will be providing videos as well as articles from Israeli media sources on this. But we can go ahead and give it to Elijah or you or Jihadist.
Okay. So first and foremost, if I come into your house and kidnap your daughter, and then whilst there's police fighting, and they kill my daughter as well as you, that would be my fault and not yours. What happens sometimes is that people don't know who they are and they shoot at the people who are attacking them, and they accidentally hit people they're not supposed to hit. That is the fault of the person attacking. That's first and foremost. Secondly, to concede on all the points and then pretend like this is still a debate is ridiculous. Thirdly, to talk about there's no evidence from Hamas itself is just to miss the point. Your argument is that the Palestinian population is so radicalized that they're far more radical than Hamas, and that therefore your actual argument is Palestinians committed war crimes Palestinians from Gaza committed war crimes and acted in ways that were frankly immoral, but nonetheless they're not Hamas, so we can't be done. This is again wrong. But even if you want to look at Hamas, I suppose those people in the porta potties that guy couldn't see. I mean, the green bandana is a bit of a giveaway on the Al-Qassam question. But those people in the porta potties that the guy just couldn't see, I suppose they were just terrorists, or they were acting as part of the Israeli state or something.
Furthermore,
just
It's very difficult to hear you, by the way.
Furthermore,
yeah.
I just want to comment on Elijah's
furthermore,
claim.
you didn't really respond to the specific allegation that I made, which referred to a specific incident. This incident, Hamas is clearly taking hostages. They're driving back in a what is a large ute, a four-wheel drive, and one of the hostages that they're attempting to take as the truck slows down, takes himself out of the back of the truck. At this point, bound, he tries to run. He is captured, physically brought back by Hamas terrorists, who we know are Hamas terrorists because they took the rest of the remaining people in the back of that truck to Gaza and held them hostage. And then later traded them. We know this, and they summarily executed this man. This is a war crime, very clearly done by Hamas terrorists. There's no denying this. You can't make the excuse this was individuals who just like went over the border randomly. This is clearly not the case.
Okay, again, just to call back into the contradiction here, because I feel like again it's another egregious claim. We already posited. We don't say that these random kidnappings or anything of the sort is justified if they're done on their own will, but that's clearly not the case. You're assuming that the story just started at October 7. What we're telling you is that you're just using buzzwords like the word terrorist, right? But you won't blame Israel for committing the same actions when they send their settlers. I agree with Elijah. If someone walks into your house and rapes your own daughter, he would be the bad guy automatically. But when we brought you the Deir Yassin massacre, you seemingly threw your microphone down and said, oh man, I'm not sure. I'm agnostic on it. Right? And so my response is going to be the same way. I'm going to be agnostic. One second, Elijah, please.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to be agnostic as to whether or not what they did is simply put a war crime based on the basis, like I said, if you push enough group of people into an oppressionable state for years and years and years, it's going to be a pressure cooker. They are going to turn back on you. The same way the ANC did. When Nelson Mandela went against the government, he didn't do so as the first instance, right? He did so after years of oppression, which is funny considering you called him a terrorist just as you called Hamas are terrorists, mainly because they were freedom fighters. Now, the reality is I've never seen a case when there was capitulation between a colonialist case and a resistance movement. If you keep pushing people to their limits, they're eventually going to blow up back on you, right? And so by no means, but what I'm simply pointing out is that it's very hypocritical for Israel to go out and point the finger and say, look at what Hamas did on October 7, and then assume that for the past 80 years, they haven't been doing the same to Gazans and Palestinians the entire time. Now, if Israel's primary concern was the hostages, can you inform me why the topology of Gaza is like a pancake? I find it very egregious that the same people who are claiming Hamas is a terrorist organization for taking hostages is the same group of people bombing the areas where the hostages are. That's why the Israelis are protesting in front of Netanyahu's house, and that's why they're protesting in front of the Israeli Knesset. It's mainly because Israel, despite claiming the hostages, they are the ones that are flattening Gaza.
Israel has multiple goals through the war. Israel has multiple goals through the war. We're discussing war crimes and hostages. We're not discussing war. If you want to do that, we can do that separately, but that's not what's going on. You can't. We can talk about
regardless.
We can do this all separately. I'm happy to talk about Deir Yassin. There was a book about it that explained all of the 107 deaths at Deir Yassin, recently called The Massacre That Never Was, if you really want to read about it. But when we're talking about war crimes, we have to do. Pardon?
250, by the way. But we'll get into details.
No. First guess for 250. Third later 107. Do that later.
Historians cite 250, but we'll get into it later. No
yeah,
let's talk about the allegations. Let's talk about the allegations on October 7th.
The question specifically, so the argument that you are mounting specifically is that if you have moral justification to do a war crime, it is no longer a war crime. This is frankly not correct. As I said in my opening statement, these are questions of fact, they're questions of law. This is what Gigi said specifically. He was saying we have to consider whether or not they were justified. This is the implication that is happening here. It doesn't matter whether or not you are morally justified in whatever you did. A war crime is a war crime. No one on this stage has claimed that no Israeli has committed war crimes. In fact, I claim the opposite. There are Israelis who have committed war crimes. And specifically, I can point to specific instances. We are limited by the fog of war at the moment, but there are instances that we can talk about that we have on camera that we can see are clearly war crimes and have no other potential justification under international law. And I pointed that to those specific
killing innocent Palestinians. And what I'm telling you is that it's egregious for you to point the finger at one side and say, terrorists, but when it comes to Israel doing the same thing, you go, yes, they did war. Yes, they indeed did war crimes. They of course did war crimes. And then when I tell you, okay, well, condemn them as terrorists.
My specific argument here is speaking about Hamas terrorists, specific individuals.
Kamikaze, please let me finish. Kamikaze, please let me finish. What I'm saying is that there needs to be some form. Elijah, relax.
What happened there was Bruce interrupted.
Elijah, look, I know. Look, they might look. I think this points actually to one of the primary examples that I was about to bring up, is that the reason why the Israeli economy currently is suffering is because even the Israeli individuals are not satisfied with the way that Israel is dealing with the Hamas situation, calling them terrorists. And there has been multiple occasions where the Israeli defense forces have proceeded to lie and slander Hamas in such a fashion just to try and justify their claims against Hamas as being terrorists. Like the very famous example when they pointed at a calendar of Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday written in Arabic and called it Hamas terrorist war plans. Okay? It's egregious. It's beyond egregious. Now we've posted more than enough evidence.
Okay.
We've posted more than enough evidence in Palestine versus Israel text chat.
I don't know if you just do 5-minute speeches, but eventually you're going to have to let somebody else in. The idea that the Israeli
you would talk once I'm done, right? That's how a conversation goes. You get the other opponent to finish a sentence, and then you get to talk.
Yeah, generally you don't get to talk for 5 minutes after interrupting somebody, but there you go.
That's a cross-examination for 30 minutes, but you have more than enough time.
Yeah. There was a 5-minute speech by you? I don't think so. The idea that the Israeli population is in...
May I continue my speech without interruption, please, moderation?
No, it's a conversation. It's a cross-examination in which we question you.
Yeah, it's a cross-examination. I need to present the thing that you're going to cross-examine. You can't cross-examine something if you don't let me finish. What are you going to cross-examine?
Yeah, the rules of cross-examination is the person doing the cross-examination gets to interrupt, because otherwise all the time gets taken up by you filibustering.
This has nothing to do with filibuster. I'm about to send evidence in side chat and have people send it.
Question of war crimes. This isn't the question of war crimes, because you're not doing war crimes.
This has nothing to do with filibuster. The reality is you do not want to listen because you know these points are going to be death shots against your state, against your apartheid state.
I'm perfectly happy to listen. What you do is you put out 15 points and expect me to respond to all of them at once.
No, it is one by one
from all individual.
Look, Elijah, look, all you have to do is get a piece of paper, get a pen, and write them down. Look, I understand. It's very easy to do that, right? That's what I've been doing the entire time. I could show you my notes. Unless you're going to call them Hamas terrorist war plans, because I've written them in Arabic.
No, I got my Arabic translation madrasa in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. So look.
You're filibustering because you don't want me to continue on the topic. This has nothing to do, by the way. You filibustered for 4 minutes.
Part of the issue is we have plenty of time to discuss things that you don't like about Israel specifically. But that is not this current topic that is in discussion now. The specific topic in discussion right now is whether or not Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th that are outside of hostage taking, which is also clearly a war crime. And the answer that I think we've already arrived at is the answer is yes, they did commit war crimes on October 7th outside of this.
Okay, you guys ready? Okay, there's 5 minutes left.
One second. Let's let Ashraf.
Go ahead. Pertaining to Hamas, only 5 minutes left.
So I'll repeat the same thing that I stated before. I told you, okay, you admitted earlier on that Israel is guilty of the same thing. Now, what I'm telling you is to be consistent and assume the same label and call them terrorists. Now you said, but it's one individual or a group of individuals. It's not the entirety of the Israeli state. We said the same thing about Palestine. The leadership of Hamas quite explicitly gave orders not to do any of the things that they did. So again, I would appreciate if you remain consistent and you say, okay, well, by that definition, since Hamas is terrorists for what they did on October 7, Israel are also terrorists for what they have been doing for the past 80 years, right? But apparently, the word 7 has infiltrated your brain.
So you have completely misrepresented my position on the use of the word terrorist. The word terrorist specifically refers to an individual. If we can have a look to the ways in which NGOs use the word terrorist to refer to specific organizations, international groups, etc. But that is not the way in which I use the word. At the end of the day, someone who commits terrorism is a terrorist. That does not mean that any group that they're a part of is a terrorist group. In fact, I'd argue that with the way in which I'm using the word terrorist, it would not apply to a group specifically. This is why I've never said that Hamas is a terrorist group. That is not what I've said, and I've not said that at any point in this debate. I have, however, referred to individual members of Hamas as Hamas terrorists.
Let's utilize the case book for international law and the definition of war crimes when it comes to hostage taking, because obviously my opponent, being not very well versed in the realm of how political science addresses the situation, proceeds to say that any form of hostage taking is going to be a law violation. I 100% disagree. That's not the definition of what a war crime is when it comes to hostage taking. What it is when there is a compulsion of a third party to do or abstain anything in exchange for the release of the hostages, right? So if it's between Hamas and Israel, can you name me the third party that is being convinced by Hamas?
Sorry, when you're taking civilians hostage and across the border, this is clearly a war crime.
No,
but this is not in the realm. This is not in the realm of the current conversation. It is frankly irrelevant because you guys admitted the reason why we had to change the specific title of this segment is because you guys admitted that firstly, hostage taking is a war crime. In this scenario, that Hamas did engage in hostage taking. That is absolutely true. This happened in the organizing of the events. This absolutely happened.
Listen very closely. I don't think you listened, right? Because you just went on like a 2-minute tangent, not addressing anything that I've told you. I told you, listen very closely. I don't intend on repeating this 50 times. It's one of my pet peeves. I've said it time and time again. We're not saying that Hamas did not take hostages. What we're saying is that they're justified in this action, and it isn't a war crime because that's not the definition of the word.
Whether or not, okay, whether or
when
not,
it comes to international law, Kamikaze,
whether even
when
if this is the case, whether or not hostage taking is a war crime is irrelevant to the current conversation. It is specifically outlined in the question that was asked.
Can you stop freaking out? Thanks. In accords with the definition of international law. You cannot make up your own definitions in the middle of the conversation and then go on the basis of your incorrect definition. What I'm telling you is the definition is there. There has to be a third party that is in compulsion to the hostages. Now, I won't repeat my question again because this is the third time you dodging it. Who is the third party being compelled by Hamas if the war is between Hamas and Israel?
There doesn't have to be a third party.
What do you mean? The civilians that are taken hostage. That would be the third party, yes. The third party here would be the specific civilians who are taken hostage by Hamas. These are people who are being taken hostage. This is a very strange reading of international law. There has to be firstly some third party. That makes no sense whatsoever. When it comes down to it, you could say something along the lines that an active combatant who is taken into custody is a prisoner of war. That would probably be accurate. But not all of the people taken into Gaza were prisoners of war. They weren't combatants. They were civilians, which would make them specifically hostages to which the Rome Statute applies.
This is actually according to the IHL, ICHL, and
this is according to the ICHL. So you're saying it's a strange reading, and what I'm telling you is you just proved my point. You are making up your own definitions. I'm going off what the international law says. So listen very closely because we posted the evidences, and this is one of my pet peeves. Look, we said it before. Check the chats for the evidences that we're posting. What you're doing is you're doing the polar opposite. You're sitting here making up your own definitions and refusing to look at the sources we sent you. We're telling you the definition has to include a third party. Then he said the third party is the civilians. The civilians are Israeli.
No, it's in order to compel a third party to do. It's not.
So out of Hamas, so there's Hamas and then there's Israel. Who's the third party?
This is such a bad misreading of international law that I refuse to believe it's not. I refuse to believe it's not.
Let me just.
Time is up.
Let's just read out specifically what it said.
Yeah. I'll read it out because clearly, writing in Arabic might be your thing, but reading in English clearly isn't. It says, International Convention on Taking Hostages defines the offence as the seizure or detention of the person, the hostage, in order to compel the third party to do or abstain from doing that. The third party here is Israel. The hostage is taken by Hamas in order to compel the third party, Israel, to trade Palestinian political prisoners and to compel them to abstain from dismantling Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is obviously hostage taking. This is obviously a violation of customary law, international law. It's on the international law page of 96 or 96. This is obviously the case. You accepted it to be the case in the debate that you agreed to, because it says in the exception of hostage taking, Hamas violated no extra international law on October 7th. This is obviously. This
has to be the last point. The time is up.
Okay,
so
yeah,
leave it at that.
I'm just gonna make the closing statement on here. Again, he did not address what I'm saying. This is what he said, and I quote. This is going to be funny for everyone that's listening here. He said, "Israel is the third party in the current state of war between Hamas and Israel."
No, I didn't. I said Israel.
So this is going to be very ridiculous. Stop. This is the final statement, Elijah. So please. Stop interrupting.
Hold on. No, this isn't the. If you want to say this is the final statement, sorry. If you want to say this is.
Wait, I'm gonna have to intervene now because this is getting out of hand. Jihadist is gonna say his final statement. Look, Elijah just read that out, and that's it. Khalas, we're gonna move on.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted because they realized that the definition.
Yeah, I don't know why they're getting the last statement here. You clearly said that time was up. If you're going to allow him right of response, you're going to allow us time of response.
You're not going to interrupt me, sir. You're not going to do that respectfully, because Elijah kept reading as I said that. So you're going to calm down and go ahead, finish your statement.
Thanks. So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted on the pretense that they realized I was about to call out the hypocrisy and close the argument. Simply put, as follows: he proceeded to try and argue that Israel is the third party. No, Israel is the second party, because the war is between Hamas and Israel. Hamas has taken Israeli hostages, and which at the beginning of the war, Israel tried to claim them to be from other nationalities. They lied. Turns out they were all members of the IDF. They were all trained by the IDF. They all held double passports.
Okay,
so there is no third party. Just like in the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis that were kidnapped and taken from their homes and dragged to the Nuremberg trials were not considered a war crime when people did that to them. And it's the same way with the Israeli Nazis.
That's enough for now. I think that you addressed this point. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second positive claim. Israel is an apartheid state. You'll have 4 minutes, Jihadist. You can go
ahead. Israel being an apartheid state?
Yep, you have 4.
Okay. Yeah, so like we provided earlier, Israel in itself, being an apartheid state, was started on the basis of the Irgun and the Lehigh. They praised the Irgun and the Lehigh. They were under direct government jurisdiction. They've engaged in several campaigns of quite literally genocide. In the earliest charter that was written down and noted down and spoken about by Abraham Stern was literally the dissolution of any Arab within the country. They even had their own little salute for that, which was equivalent to the Nazi salute. They used to put 2 fingers together and raise them up. In modern-day Israel, they have this all over the place. And when it comes to the issue of Israel being an apartheid state, I've already provided at the beginning of the conversation in which Elijah wasn't present, so I'll have to reread it for him. Let me pull it out here, because I do transcript everything I say. We'll have to take a look contextually at very certain things. Israel was established in 1948 following the United Nations Partition Plan, which intended to create separate Jewish and Arab states in the territory known as Palestine. During this period and its aftermath, significant numbers of Palestinians were displaced from their homes, and then the Palestinians named the term Nakba. Well, let's take a look at the specific policies and the practices that they've enacted over the years, and then we'll conclude as to whether it is an apartheid state or not. The laws and citizenry. Since its establishment, Israel has implemented various laws that critics are in unanimous agreement, and there isn't a single individual that could ever even contest this, that the Israeli government institutionalized segregation and discrimination by their laws, for example, the virtue of the law of return in 1950, which grants Jews worldwide the right to return to Israel and gain citizenship. But no such right is extended to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1948, nor to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1967. But God forbid a single Jew feels a little bit remotely hurt in Europe or rural Ukraine, he'll get a free ticket plane all the way to Israel. But a Palestinian who gets his family butchered and his family raped in front of his eyes? Nah, they're all terrorists. Land and property laws. Israel regarding land and property has been contentious. For example, the absentee property law, which is defined in their own written accord Anyone who had left this property to go to an Arab state during the Arab-Israeli war is an absentee. And this property of absentees could then be appropriated by the state. So they took away Palestinian land who ran away from the war and proceeded to give them to the Jews. One of the ones that I've mentioned, is literally the guy in my profile picture, Ghassan Kanafani, who has written extensively about this specific law. The third thing is the settlement and segregation policies. Post-1967, Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories. West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights. These are all illegal under international law. There isn't a single international paper that says Israel is allowed to occupy the Golan Heights. There isn't a single international law that says Israel is allowed to occupy the West Bank. There isn't a single international law that says that Israel is allowed to occupy East Jerusalem. In fact, the ICJ, just as recently as 3 months ago, convicted Israel of breaking this and committing a war and violating international law, in which Israel published on Haaretz that they don't care what the ICJ has to say, because at the end of the day, Israel does what Israel wants, and anyone who disagrees is somehow an anti-Semite. Now, the definition of apartheid, according to the International Convention of Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid, which was established in 1976, defines an apartheid as an inhuman act committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one specific group, either by virtue of racial or ethnic group, and utilizing systematic laws to oppress those other than this group. And you could see this with the examples that I've listed above with the law, such as the law of return and the law of absentees. Why isn't it being extended to the Palestinians? Surely this calls into the question the integrity of the Israeli state as being founded on apartheid. The Human Rights Organization, several human rights organizations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch have described Israel policies as an apartheid.
Okay, perfect. Yazan, you have 4 minutes. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
According to the United Nations, it defines apartheid as inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. Another definition actually applies not only to racial groups, but just groups in general that seem to be distinct from the group that is desiring domination. Apartheid can also apply to gender or even national groups. What we have seen take place in modern-day Palestine and Israel is just exactly that. For the course of decades, we have seen systematic brutalization of the Palestinian peoples by means of terrorizing them in the West Bank through the force of the IDF, insane checkpoints and harassment for zero reason, illegal settlers terrorizing their homes and practicing authoritarian rule over them, backed by the state as well. And even laws made dedicated to directly and indirectly discriminate against non-Jewish Israeli citizens, which happens to be the majority Palestinians. This is not at all surprising, though, as we can see that even in its early roots, Israel has been incredibly fond of such systems. We can see Freudian slips from Zionist officials of today and the past, from the likes of Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir, all the way to Chaim Weizmann and Ben-Gurion. Israel is not a state of all its citizens, but rather the nation state of the Jewish people and only them, quote unquote, from Benjamin, or I would call him bastard Netanyahu. With regards to Ben-Gvir himself, he is well known for publicly stating his quote unquote inherent right to visit his quote unquote holy sites in the West Bank as a Jew, regardless of the detrimental effects it has on Palestinians. Furthermore, early Zionists favored the South African apartheid regime, ironically, or not ironically, I should say, in policy and conduct. There is a particular dimension to the secret consort between Balfour and the Zionist leadership to betray the aspirations of the Palestinian people. It was Weizmann's close friend and future Prime Minister of South Africa, General Hahn or John Smuts or Schmutz, who as South African delegate to the British War Cabinet during World War I, helped push the British government to adopt the Balfour Declaration and to make a commitment to construct a Zionist colony under British direction. The relationship between the Zionist movement and the South African settlers had evolved earlier, as had the friendship between General Schmutz and Chaim Weizmann, who, by the way, is a former Israeli president. By the turn of the century, a large Jewish population, primarily from Lithuania, had settled in South Africa. The Zionist movement regarded the population as particularly susceptible to Zionist ideas because of their already established settler status in South Africa. Zionist leaders traveled constantly to South Africa seeking political and financial support. Let's not forget, we're talking about the former Israeli president here, Chaim Weizmann, who it seems to be a trend with the Israeli government. Former terrorists become former or then prime ministers and presidents. With all that being said, it is incredibly easy to identify what's taking place on the ground for the Palestinians, as further analysis with statistics and reports will conclude that Israel is simply a bastard apartheid state. And I give up the rest of my time.
Okay, Kamikaze, you have 4 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's the case that both Yazan and Gigi have both misquoted international law here. Specifically, Gigi snuck in an extra word into the Apartheid Convention. When he read out the Apartheid Convention, he imagined that there was an extra group that's included in this definition. This is not the case. The inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. It obviously did not say ethnical groups here. Secondly, he missed out the start of the the Apartheid Convention. Specifically, he ignored the statement where it said that it's this racial segregation as practiced in South Africa. This must be comparative to the situation in South Africa. It clearly isn't. There is obviously discrimination on the basis of ethnicity inside of Israel, as happens in every single country around the world, but not discrimination under the law. In apartheid South Africa, there was a myriad of acts passed by the government that were specifically racialized policy, and these are the policies that are referred to in the Apartheid Convention. The opponent might be tempted to bring in the Rome Statute specifically with regards to this conversation. But firstly, the Rome Statute merely points to the Apartheid Convention to give its definition of apartheid. And secondly, Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute. It would not apply in this scenario. I see the rest of my time if I have any.
Yeah, you have 2 minutes left. But okay, Elijah, if you want, you got 4 minutes left. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yes, there is definitely given website also in this definitely like is which
Bro, Elijah, you're breaking up horrifically.
You're a little inaudible right now, Elijah. You want to go fix your mic?
Hello? Any better?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a definition of apartheid also given on the UN website, and it's one of which the goal of the apartheid is ethnic homogeneity. And then this is clarified by a definition that finishes to the exclusion of the Kurds and Kurds. This is clearly not met in the case of Israel. There were 80,000 Arabs or more than 80,000. There were tens of thousands of Arabs in the Jewish state, qua 1948. It's just not true to say that there has been ethnic homogeneity. There is no definition of genocide that you can find that Israel meets. The idea that, for example, law of return is genocide. I mean, Australia has an infinite law of return for its native Aboriginal population. We would not call Australia a genocide in favour of its native Aboriginals. There is no thing that you bring up that is evidence alone of genocide. There is discrimination on the basis of nationality. In Israel, all countries discriminate on the basis of nationality. This is why Palestinians have no right of return, because they are not of the same nationality. This is why also they're held in military courts, because they're not of the same nationality. We can do that later. The idea that there is a systematic apartheid in Israel is just false, because the country of Israel does not exist to the exclusion of the Kurdish group or groups to which the respective international law refers. I yield my time.
I'm sorry.
The microphone was so bad I didn't even know whether he finished or not.
Wait, what, did you secede your time? Is that what just happened?
Yeah, he yielded his time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so you guys will have 20 minutes cross-exam whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
Right. So again, not a single source. I want everyone in the audience to notice this. None of these individuals have posted a source. It's all yapping, but there is zero evidence when we have posted it. Now, as for Kamikaze's claim, apparently he's accusing the United Nations of adding in words, considering the United Nations considers the word ethnicity being applicable to this scenario. As a matter of fact, that was literally the foundational reason as to why there were groups in South Africa themselves that were also part of the African collective, but weren't supportive of the ANC. They were more supportive of the white provisional government, right? And that was considered supporting the apartheid state, even though it's by virtue of mere ethnicity and their backgrounds in the form of tribalism. But obviously, Kamikaze does not know that because the United Kingdom does not teach him any of that. In his eyes, everything the West does is correct, and everything the East does is just simply wrong. Now, the reality is that the United Nations themselves have convicted Israel of committing these acts. So it isn't even a debate on this matter. The proof is in the pudding. We have sent the evidences of the condemnations. We have sent the evidences of everything that was written. We have placed forward all of the references. I haven't seen anything from the opponent. And so what I'm saying is, just simply put, if you could just show us one single group that denies that Israel is under an apartheid state, a neutral group, right? A neutral group of political scientists or sociologists that have said that Israel does not support or have any form of apartheid state. For example, the law of return. The law of return. Why weren't the Palestinians included, Mr. Elijah? If you could just inform us, enlighten us. Why weren't the Palestinians included in the right of return?
Do you want an answer? Yeah, you want an answer? The answer is because they're a different nationality. You're allowed to discriminate on the basis of nationality.
Okay, so it's on the basis of their nationality. So what? Palestinians are not allowed, but Germans are?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Hold on. Just to be clear.
Hold on, no,
there are
Kamikaze,
many,
don't save him.
like every
Kamikaze,
country. No, hold on. I'm not
don't save
saving him. He's my debate partner. What are you talking about? Specifically, when we're talking about apartheid, you're allowed to discriminate on the basis of whether or not you're a citizen of the country, and on the basis of nationality. You're absolutely allowed to accept citizens on that basis or not. That's absolutely allowed in international law, and this happens time and time again with regards to like every country in the fucking world.
Okay, so just so we're clear, you just said, and I want to be clear here because this is on recording, you are allowed to discriminate against people that are not from your country. Did you say that right?
If you are not a citizen of the country, yes, you are absolutely allowed to do that, unless you have entered into some other. Unless you have entered into a other international convention, unless you have entered into another convention that like doesn't allow you to specifically do this. It is absolutely okay to allow only citizens of your country to vote, for example. This is absolutely allowed.
The problem is
it is absolutely discrimination. Yes, it absolutely is.
No, it isn't, because
that's the definition.
Because again, as I've listed earlier, can you send me? Look, you said that it is it's absolute discrimination. Well, this is not discrimination. Discrimination specifically has a very set definition. Now, with that being said, what I'm asking you, Kamikaze, which you still have.
What is that definition?
You and Elijah.
What is that definition?
You and Elijah.
What is the definition that you are using for discrimination?
You don't get past.
Can the moderators deal with
there is a definition and then not give the definition?
No, because he's going to take like 5 minutes. He's done this throughout the entire other video. No, he's done this throughout the entire. Yeah, the cross-examination.
It's the cross-examination, so we're allowed to ask questions.
Yeah.
What is the definition that you are using?
Yeah. Well, maybe if you stop Tweedledumming and Tweedledeeing me, you'll get the definition.
You have the time to give us the definition right now instead of being a little bitch.
Oh,
please
all right.
refrain from curse words.
And the moderators, please. Okay. Right. So it's very clear that my opponents have utterly and completely lost it. Right. And they said their true opinions, essentially revealing their true colors, that they're nothing short of disgusting, filthy individuals who can't have an adult conversation. Okay. Your blood pressure must be really through the roof. What I'm saying is just simply as follows. Again, this is not discrimination, because discrimination definitionally is unjust and prejudicial treatment of different categories of people on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. Key word, unjust. It's not unjust to say that people who are not part of your country do not have a say in what happens within your country. That is not unjust. It's unjust to say that people who you are oppressing do not have a right to live in your country as much as some random dude in Germany does. That is unjust. That is a violation of international law. Right? But unfortunately, Kamikaze wants to be disingenuous when it comes to that factor. And he wants to focus on very specific sets of wordings that would disagree or agree with his personal agenda. Whereas the reality is, as I've listed before, the United Nations is in agreement with us on this point. There is no argument to be made from their end. Israel is condemned as an apartheid state. It is considered an apartheid state. Humanitarian groups are in unanimous agreement that it is an apartheid state. Israeli-based humanitarian groups are in agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. Political scientists in unison are in agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. I asked for one thing that they themselves have still not provided, and instead slurred a bunch of insults at me because they cannot talk like adults. And it goes to show how mature the Zionist brain really is. Can you show me one single political scientist that disavows the idea that Israel does not have a single law that enforces apartheidism in accords with their government? That's all I'm asking. And you guys are struggling to do this because you damn well know that you don't have any evidence. So as expected, you resort to cursing and resort to yelling B word.
Okay, can I get in? Have you finished it? Okay. The burden is not, the statement is Israel is practicing apartheid. The burden is on you to show the law, not on us to show a political scientist that disavows it. You're debating us. You're not debating like an authority. You're debating us, and that means that your claims to authority are moot.
Okay, so Elijah,
Okay,
the thing is, you guys are shifting
no, I'm not finished. You're interrupting.
Okay, continue.
The question is, what's the law?
Yeah, we've
Sorry?
Yeah, so if you look at the chat that we've posted, you are free to go and read it for yourself. What I'm telling you is that it fits the criteria. Why aren't the Palestinians, which are being put in open air prison camps, not subject to that law? You said, oh, well, it's because they're not part of the nation. And I told you, well, someone living in Germany is not part of the nation. So that is unjust in action. It is discriminatory. So, Kamikaze, of course, jumped in, yelled it's discriminatory.
The definition of discrimination that was being used when I was specifically talking was the ability to recognize.
Thank you, dude. You have a problem with like talking in line, okay? Like all you have to do is
talking too long. So I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm almost done. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. If you would just let me damn speak.
No, it's not. You're trying to filibuster. You've been doing this since I came in.
Yeah, the only thing that's been filibustering is you guys interrupting me mid-conversation because you don't want to hear the truth. So, again, I asked and I still have not received. I said it fits the definition. I've provided the proofs. I've sent the evidences. You haven't sent a single scholarly response to what we said. Article 2, in Article 2, it directly falls. The policy of the law of return directly fits into Article 2, of which I sent in side chat. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to repeat it a billion times, and I'd appreciate if you don't filibuster and actually answer what I told you. Can you show me one single, political scientist, sociologist, whatever it may be, historian, that turned around and said Israel does not have apartheid laws? That's all I'm asking. Go ahead. I've sent my burden of proof. The issue is you don't have anything to
I'm going to clarify. Hold on. It sounded like you were finished. I'm so sorry, but you can't just filibuster forever. If you meet me again, I'm just leaving, by the way. When it comes to discrimination specifically, the definition that I was using for that specific word is the recognition and understanding of difference between one thing and another. When I discriminate between two things, that is what I'm doing. It is the case that sometimes in international law, we can discriminate between two things and recognize that they are different. When we allow for a citizen to vote and not allow for a non-citizen to vote, this is discrimination, yes, but it's not discrimination in the way that you're talking about it. It's clearly not unjust or prejudicial. Even under your definition, these examples are not discrimination. Specifically, this discrimination with regard to ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. That being said, this is irrelevant to the conversation that we are currently having, specifically a conversation on the crime of apartheid, which very clearly refers to racial discrimination.
Actually, Kamikaze, the issue is we've sent you, according to the United Nations and the convention, where apartheid applies, and it is not exclusive to racial groups. It is actually just.
It absolutely is. I will send you the link right now.
We sent you the convention, the VC text. We're welcome to go look at it. So I just want to say one last thing. I've cited.
Hold on.
I've cited.
I'll read from what you sent. Yes, I'll read from what you sent.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Shall apply to the following inhuman acts. Sorry, I've lost my place. Shall apply to the following inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. That does not say ethnical. That does not say anything else. That says racial. In fact, in this definition, we can continue down, but all you're going to hear is time and time again them saying the word racial group or groups. Racial group or groups.
What does all groups apply to?
It means one or more racial group. That's what it means.
Okay. So in regards to the definition applying to only a racial group, you're only going to insinuate that apartheid is including or is exclusive to particularly racial groups. So hypothetically, you can have an ethnicity, right, enacting oppression and discrimination on another ethnicity, but it doesn't fall under the definition of apartheid. Oxford Dictionary disagrees, by the way, but if you want to play the definition
Oxford
game,
Dictionary isn't an international law source.
no problem. So Jihadist, I'll let you carry on with the definition where it's applicable, but I want to also address the cited 65 laws that are discriminatory towards the Palestinian citizens inside of Israel today, which none of you have addressed just yet.
So again, they notice this for the audience. They refuse to address anything that we've actually put forth. First of all, he asked me, he butted in, literally interrupted, called me a B word because I wanted to describe what the definition of discrimination is. Then I gave him the definition of discrimination. Oh, it turns out it disagrees with him. What does he do? Irrelevant to the conversation.
Me, by the way, I just read it out.
So what I
read out the definition.
Kamikaze, please do not interrupt me.
I'm sorry, you keep lying about what I said. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt if you lie about what I'm said.
Moderators,
you can address that after the fact, Kamikaze.
Yeah, you can address that after. Look, this isn't.
There is no after the fact because he goes for 10 minutes.
This isn't a McDonald's line where you just walk in and get your burger.
Ashram, can I just?
What happens in this conversation? Sir, you're inaudible, sir. Can you fix your mic?
It's not like a McDonald's drive-thru, like you just straight up butt in, dude. We let people finish.
Yeah. What happens? What happens in these conversations? What happens seems to happen so far. I've been here for like half an hour, and what happens, or maybe an hour, and what happens every single time is that what we said gets lied about, and then 10 minutes later we're asked to respond to like 15 different lies about what we've said, and then 15 different lies about actual fact on the ground. And it's not a feasible way to debate. It's so clearly not in good faith.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Cross-examination is not lying about your opponent. Cross-examination is not lying about your opponent. Yes, when we do, we're told we're interrupting.
Yeah,
When we do that, when we do that, we're told that we're interrupting them.
Elijah,
because
I think you're filibustering. I think you're filibustering.
Elijah, can you stop? Can someone just make sure that this isn't counted towards the time?
The trauma dumps and filibustering.
Yeah, because
please allow Jihadist to finish. Please, Elijah, you have to be quiet and allow him.
When you lie about me, when you lie about me, I'm willing to. This is
okay, you can address that after the fact. You know how debates and discussion work?
When people lie about me.
Yeah, you can address that after the fact, sir.
No, I won't. When people lie about me, I'm willing to.
Oh my lord! Okay.
Yeah, you can address that after the fact. I don't think you know how to.
It's just filibustering. His trauma dumping.
No, when people lie about me, okay, you can go. It's just that you will get.
I will interrupt you mid-conversation. Can I at least finish my sentence before?
The first thing he lied about was that I said it's a third party. I didn't say Israel was a third party. The first thing he lied about was when I came in that I said Israel was the third party before. I didn't say Israel was the third party. The thing he just lied about was Kamikaze saying that it was about the definition of discrimination. The next thing, the next pretense that we need to provide in political scientists, as if like in any other context we take arguments from authority, is just ridiculous. Either he thinks the UN is good source or he doesn't. But yes, the first thing he lied about when I came before about 20 minutes ago was that I said Israel is a third party. I didn't say that. And then I got cut off, by the way. Then I got cut off by Ashraf because Ashraf said the time was up, even though saying the time was up. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, can we make sure that we extend all this time, by the way, to like the continuation of the section?
All I heard was he lied about it, party. Okay, that's how bad the microphone is. But all right, can I finish now that you got it off your chest? It's done. Can I now continue my sentence without interruptions?
Sure. But if you lie about me, I'll interrupt you.
So as I was saying, yeah, the moderators will just mute you. This is fine. Everyone's free. So again, I've posited the same thing. Oh my lord! Already, moderators, please.
Yeah, he's on your side now.
Look, I don't know if this is like the new Israeli tactic, right? When you get like cornered, you just begin like interrupting people. I'm trying. I'm certainly trying.
No, you're not. You're insulting.
So,
and then when
as I was Right. So after that weird trauma dump filibuster, as I was saying, it's very clear that they are unable to provide the evidences. We have given forward many examples in which the definition of discrimination directly fit into the definition. Kamikaze first asked me to define what discrimination is. I told him it's the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. He said, people not allowed to vote is discrimination. I told him that's not unjust, because it's not unjust to say that one individual who is not in the country should not maintain say of what occurs within the country, because it does not affect it. Now, with that being said, I already informed them that this does not fall under the category of unjust. Instead of actually saying, well, I'm sorry, Jihadist, I may have, I may have incorrectly pressured you into saying what the definition of discrimination is, he goes on and says irrelevant to the conversation. Of course it's 100% relevant. You asked me to define it. Now, as I posted in the Palestine versus Israel text chat, I've posted out literally where the UN expands on these laws. They are deathly afraid of addressing what I've posted in these chats. As you notice, if anyone in the audience could go into the Palestine v Israel chat right above the stage chat, you'll notice we're the only ones that have been posting. These people haven't posted anything beyond randomly hurling bad words at me. Again, under Article 2, Israel falls under this definition, thus justifying them as an apartheid state. I said, everyone is in unanimous agreement that they're an apartheid state. Amnesty International, all humanitarian groups are in unanimous agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. Humanitarian groups within Israel concede that Israel is an apartheid state. The United Nations has conceded that Israel is an apartheid state. Every international group, political scientists and sociologists are in direct agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. Now, I've posited one very simple statement in which now, for the past 30 minutes, I haven't received a single claim.
GG, come on, come on, moderator.
Can the moderator?
He's been going for like 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, I'm about to finish.
We surely get the opportunity to reply here. He started
I'm
by
literally
lying
about
about
to
the
last
order
two
in
words.
which statements were made. He started off by discussing specifically. I made Jesus Christ.
You're an
even
atheist. You don't believe in Jesus, bud.
So, anyways, go ahead.
Right. So, as I was saying, it's just one simple thing which they still have not provided for the past 30 minutes. Bring me one sociologist or a single humanitarian group that doesn't call Israel an apartheid state. It's just one. That's all I'm asking. Just one.
Okay, go ahead, Kamikaze.
So he lied specifically about the order of events in which things were stated. I made the specific statement. The statement was that it's okay to discriminate on the basis of whether or not you are or are not a citizen. It is clear that I had a definition that I used when I said discrimination. He wants to pretend that he brought up that term initially. Secondly, I asked him in good faith to define what he meant when he said discrimination so I could figure out where the miscommunication happened. At the end of the day, when I say the word discrimination, I mean discerning between two different groups of things. It is obviously the case that you can discriminate on the basis of whether or not you are a citizen of a country. That is obviously the case.
Okay, Kamikaze.
Furthermore, just posting a list of laws that you claim violate international law with regards to apartheid does not actually make an argument. It is just a weird appeal to authority. It would have been nice if you came into the conversation, decided one or two laws, and then made the argument, but you haven't done that. This is the strangest way of debating I have ever seen in my life.
So apart from international law, which isn't even important to claim, I cited to you 65 laws within the Israeli Basic Law. And these all are primarily things that have been made or amended in the last 10 to 15 years. And you will find direct discrimination against Israeli citizens that are non-Jewish, right?
Give me the example. Instead of just asserting it's the case,
no
give
problem.
the example.
I cited
You're running out of time. I don't think you have time to do this, unfortunately.
No problem.
It's
no
the
problem.
unfortunate case of the matter. But you should have just referred to a specific instance. I referred to specific instances when I made my positive arguments. You just refused to make reference to specific instances.
Okay, beautiful. So in regards to, for example, the law regarding admissions committees law, okay, amendment number 8 and 12, okay, the description is, I'll read this out in the following. The 2011 admissions committees law permits admissions committees as statutory bodies almost complete discretion to screen applicants seeking to purchase housing units and plots of land in hundreds of Jewish Israeli so-called community towns built on state land in Israel. This is on the basis of arbitrary and racist criteria related to their perceived social suitability to the social and cultural fabric.
So it's not explicitly. Sorry, just to be clear, you were making the claim that you could point to explicit discrimination. This is not explicit. To be clear, correct?
Well, no, absolutely, it is explicit. We can actually go over exactly why it's explicit and why it's discriminatory to begin with. Regarding why it's discriminatory, the law empowers admissions committees to reject applicants deemed unsuitable to the social life of the community or the social and cultural fabric of the town. So the law also authorizes admissions committees to adopt admission criteria determined by individual community towns themselves based on their special characteristics, including those community towns that have defined themselves as having Zionist vision. Admissions committees thus have broad discretion to reject applicants based on vague, broad, and subjective criteria that are deliberately amendable to being exploited as a means of excluding those who are not part of a Jewish social and cultural majority. That is 1 out of 65. We can continue on to the rest. With regards to foreign property ownership, the amendment passed in March 2011 prevents any person.
Sorry, none of
party,
this. Just sorry. I understand. I just want to clarify something. I don't mean to interrupt. But this. Sorry, you made the claim that this is explicit. When we're talking about explicit, I'm surely you understand like what explicit means. It's not something that would result in potentially discriminatory practice. This is obviously bad, but things that might result in discriminatory practices are not apartheid. When we're looking at apartheid, we're looking at things like the Bantu Authorities Act. We're looking at things like the Natives Abolition of Passes and Coordination of Documents Act that are specifically built on like racial lines. They specifically referred to these racial groups, and they explicitly line this out. It is the case that in many countries, minorities face all sorts of discrimination, but that does not make countries apartheid countries.
Okay. So in regards to the amendment of 2021, which I would actually disagree with, that first law actually gives a lot of room for segregation in the sense that if a town...
Wait, it might give a lot of room, but that's not sufficient. Continue.
No, I mean, we see it active all day, but let's say, for example, the amendment of 2021, where the right to self-determination is exclusive only to Jewish nationals, right? And this was posted 2021 Israeli Basic Law. Explicitly mentioned, and you can go look at Section A where it actually cites it. If you are going to sit here and insinuate that this is not actually explicit or doesn't give any sort of exclusivity to racial or ethnic privilege, then I mean, we're just acting delusional, ignoring text here. I mean, you can look through the 65 yourself and you will see exactly the law itself, what it enacts and why it is discriminatory and how it's being enacted today. And this continues on furthermore. I'll give you even, for example, what I mentioned earlier.
Hold on. How about we stop and we have a look at the specific law that you're talking about?
Sure.
How about we do that? Like, this is the much better way of having this conversation. So what is the specific law? Is it in practice today? And when did it get instituted?
Okay. So 2021, Israel amended in its basic laws. Okay. Section A. Let's look here. It's called the Jewish National Law, or Jewish National Statehood, I guess, identified. Basic law. This is known as the nation state bill that specifies that the country's significance is to the Jewish people. It was passed by the Knesset with 62 in favor, 55 against, and 2 abstentions. And it is largely quote unquote symbolic but declarative in nature. The law outlines a number of roles and responsibilities by which Israel is bound in order to fulfill the purpose of serving as the Jewish nation state. Of course, it was met with heavy backlash. If you'd like to look at the law yourself,
we can have a look at the law. Yeah, none of the stuff that I'm seeing in here, I'm just scrolling through right now, do anything different to what the majority of the Arab states in the region do. The Arab states in the region specifically declare them to be Arab states, Arab homelands, Arab places for Arabs to live, places that are based on the religious traditions exclusive to Muslim people. This does not make it places apartheid regimes. I don't like this law. This isn't a law that I would be okay with passing in my country. However, it is not the case that this makes it an apartheid regime.
Okay. So in regards to you saying other Arab states having it, that is actually completely false. There are no Sharia-based societies today that give any sort of discrimination, except with a small exception on the basis of race. Actually, never in race. It's usually religious. Sure, that's fine. That's fine. You will never find a situation with an Arab state or Islamic nation nearby where it segregates or discriminates or gives exclusivity of self-determination to a race. At the very highest extent, which is completely separate and has a lot more nuance to it, it will be on the basis of religion. And all of Israel's neighbors do not even enact this as of today. That would just be a tu quoque, even if it was accurate, and it simply is not accurate. Simply giving rights to self-determination, as well as the other 65 bullshit laws that are in the Israeli amendments as of today, are completely explicit and on the basis of ethnic group. And I think we can, just check out the text for itself, and the evidence speaks for itself in the chat that we've posted.
But
the rules.
all it says, just to be clear, the basic principle B, all it says is that the national group, Jewish group, just to be clear, all it says, just give me the quick right of turn, it's going to take 5 seconds. All it says specifically is that the Jewish people should have self-determination inside of Israel. But that's true. That's true. And that's true of every national group inside of a state.
Okay. Since that's the last point, I want you and Elijah to go through these 65 laws we've posted, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and post or go to the next topic. No problem. We don't have any opening statements for this topic, unless Elijah and Kamikaze have them.
Yeah, I thought we nixed this section.
Do you guys have any opening statements?
Hang on. I thought we cut this section. No, I thought we cut this section.
Cut off this section?
Yes.
Examination. Do you guys want to do a 40-minute cross-examination on this?
Didn't we already do October 7th?
No, this is the justification / analysis of Hamas's actions in the operation of October 7th.
Yeah, that's what we did. We said Hamas, talking about Hamas.
Yeah, but Elijah, I sent you. You can maybe have it here and record.
I mean, look. I don't know if you guys want to okay, this would just be a 40-minute cross-examination. I don't know if you guys want to do 20 cross-examination or something, or if you guys all agree to just cut it out, we can move on to the conclusion and the closing statement.
What happened in previously?
Your mic is cutting out.
Elijah, you're cutting out, man.
Okay, so we were supposed to be doing Hamas war crimes, and we didn't stay on top of it during the last section. So now we're in a position where this has already been covered.
Look, okay then. Would you guys all agree to just maybe lower down the time limit to 20 minutes or something, and just make any side comments that you guys didn't get to make on that topic? Or we can just completely get rid of it and move on to conclusions. So it's whatever you guys want, majority.
I know the debate has been going on for quite some time, but Elijah, you have we have it all listed here. I can literally send screenshots. We have agreed to this topic,
but
and this topic is actually no.
He's claiming that you guys already went over.
No. Unless you're running away, Elijah, we have not went over the broader topic that we already discussed.
Just putting it out there.
Elijah, the positive claim number 2 is regarding war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th. This is a justification from our end and an analysis from your end, or both sides, on October 7th itself and the overall efforts and actions of Hamas. I've sent this in the text message from days ago. We've all agreed upon it. I would not like to skip over this, but if you guys have to, that's completely fine.
Kamikaze, are you okay with going over this, Kamikaze?
I don't care. I thought we nixed it, but I don't.
Yeah, we only nixed it's just a big cross examination. It's 40 minutes. I don't know if you guys want to do 20 minutes instead or whatever.
Okay. Well, how about we do a section where they try and justify October 7th? We just respond.
But that's literally this section though. That's 20 minutes. Literally a justification / analysis, and it's just a cross examination.
Yeah, the cross-examinations haven't included question marks. We'll go for it.
Whatever. This is just meant to be a cross-examination. Do you guys want to make it? You guys still want it to be 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I don't
40 minutes. You okay with that, Elijah? Okay with that, Kamikaze? 40 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, what I would propose, Elijah, is that you guys do a critique of October 7th while we justify October 7th. we can do, for example, an analysis on the war on Gaza in general, and you can do defense on the war on Gaza in general. How does that sound?
I haven't prepared that, but I could do that if you want.
Yeah, it would just be. Do you want it to be 20 minutes still or 40 minutes? Let's just decide on the time real quick.
Kamikaze, what do you think?
I'm okay with whatever.
40 or 20?
I know Jad is kind of getting lengthy, but Jad, if you have something, I completely understand. Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I mean, I have to pray soon, but like, I don't like. You guys can do 20 or 40. It's your choice.
Yeah, I think Jad, just go ahead and pray while we start, because it's gonna be lengthy, and then.
All right, I'll do 40 minutes. I'll put the time on 40 minutes.
Okay.
To be completely honest, the section that I was supposed to be doing, I've genuinely terrible play. The section that I wanted to be doing was indigeneity, but I know you've already done that.
Yeah, but you said you wanted to do like a justification of October 7th, but this is going to.
No, what I said was that I was willing to justify to October 7th. What I want, if I didn't have my brothers, what I'd like to do is.
But it's very hard to understand you. Your mic is not the best thing.
Yeah, look, Elijah. Here's I'm gonna do this in all sincerity.
What I do would be like 20 minutes of justification of October 7th and 20 minutes of it back on the claim Palestinian Arabs aren't indigenous.
Okay, Elijah, let's do this then, Jeb. I'm gonna give him 10 minutes on indigeneity as he wills. We'll respond with a baby cross-examination. Okay, and then that'll be within the 40 minutes. It'll be 30 minutes left to the final topic. And Jed, if you have to pray, you have to pray. That's fine. We'll just try to like in good faith.
So what's the time what's the time we're all agreeing on right now?
So yeah, so 10 minutes, Elijah, for indigeneity discussion. I would prefer that you don't do an opening statement, so we actually have time to discuss evidence. And then 30 minutes for the last topic on October 7th in the Gaza war. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I can cut the opening statement down to everything.
I mean, so you have to. Jed, if you want to pray, just pray, man. I'm gonna moderate on your behalf.
Yeah, can you take over for me? For like
yeah, sure. Are you guys cool?
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, Elijah, 10 minutes on indigeneity, cross-examination or discussion with evidences, and then 30 minutes on the last topic. Sound good? I think that's more than fair, considering we're like revising something you were absent for.
Okay.
I'm gonna start.
Well, you want to skip the intro? We can skip the intro and then let's get straight into it.
Sorry, say that again.
You wanted to skip the intro. We can skip the intro and back into it. There is no basis to say. Well, you want to skip the intro. I'll lay out very in 2 sentences. There is no basis to say that the Palestinian Arab population are indigenous in a way that cannot be claimed to be Jews.
Okay, should I start the timer, by the way, Elijah? It's so difficult to hear you. Like, I didn't even know you were opening.
We can skip the introduction because you want to.
Skip the opening statement and just go ahead into cross-examination?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to start the timer for the cross-examination now. Go ahead and try to get closer to the mic or clear it up a lot. It's so difficult to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, bad Wi-Fi.
Okay, that's better. I'm going to start now. Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry, I thought it was our claim. You were cross-examining us.
Yeah, it is your claim. I'm asking you if you want to go ahead and start cross-examining us on the claim, or you want me to go ahead and give a justification for what we deny of it.
Yeah, no. We make the claim, then you question us about it.
Elijah, just set out the argument like very quick, like maybe 3 sentences, and then they can do their thing.
When we talk about Palestinian Arabs, we're talking mostly about people that weren't present in what you would call historic Palestine in the year 1900. So that when we're talking about these people, we are talking about a category of people which roughly exist in the same category to the Jews that you would say immigrated in the Aliyah. So that there's no way in which you can make a claim about Palestinian indigeneity that I can't make a claim about Jewish indigeneity.
Okay, so we've posted. in the VC text, just to revisit this, I'll let you speak now, Jihadist, but we've posted, as of today, according to geneticists, according to the United Nations, according to genetic studies and DNA reports on all of this kind of stuff, Palestinian Arabs of today are not only indigenous to the land by means of the ethnicities that they relate to as of the historic area, but also more indigenous than the average Israeli citizen today. I've cited my sources in the VC text. According to the United Nations itself, Palestinians are also recognized as indigenous peoples to the land of Palestine. And with regards to the quote-unquote allegations that the majority of the Palestinians that reside in Palestine today are a result of some sort of external immigration from other nations nearby, there is zero basis for this. People usually misconstrue the claims that some would make regarding the people that live in Gaza. But the funny thing is about the people that live in Gaza, the majority of them are refugees from other areas they've been exiled from post-Nakba. So if you have any genetic studies to back your claims, that would be nice. But I don't see anything else that you can make a claim to.
It's not. It's literally. It's theoretically impossible that genetic studies could prove what I'm saying to prove.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do, and they can. And we posted the evidence. Don't just say impossible. We send the evidence inside chat. So with that being said, I've also posited the following argument.
Hold on, can someone mute this guy for interrupting? Hello.
Yo. One at a time, please. Go ahead. Elijah.
Okay,
go ahead,
so
Elijah.
It's not possible that with the claim I'm making that genetic studies could prove it, which shows that you've missed my claim. My claim, it's not possible that genetic studies could show that a person was either in the South Levant in 1900 or it's not. How could a genetic study prove that?
How could a genetic study prove that the population residing in Palestine is indigenous to the...
No, how could my claim was about the concentration of people there in the year 1900. It was about the concentration of people in the South Levant in the year 1900. How could a genetic study prove that?
Yeah, because genetic studies the genome and where it originated from. And if the genome
in
is
1900,
Canaanites, yeah, you realize there are corpses that you could derive genes from the 1900s, right? You're aware of this phenomenon, right?
Yes, you could show.
You're aware of genealogy tracking, right? So we could go back to those who were deceased in the 1900s and before. You're aware of this, right?
Are you providing any evidence that this has been done?
Yes, we are. That's what the study is for, in which you are just responding with impossible, but refusing to actually check it. So Elijah, my question to you is, so the question that we're bringing up, Elijah, which now, again, we've even provided we've even shown you how you guys maintain a double standard with this. You are an Orthodox Jew, Elijah, are you not? You're aware of your Torah, are you not? Can you tell me what Joshua is notable? What Joshua is notable for?
Joshua is notable for lots of things. I don't know why it's relevant, my religion.
Okay, it's relevant. I'll tell you why it's relevant. Because Joshua was the one who led the attacks on the Canaanites. The Jews themselves are not indigenous to the land. They're all from Egypt. Now, with that being said, what I'm telling you is that the geneticists...
It's the same two-quay that Yazan accused Kamikaze of before.
This has nothing to do with two-quay because we provided the genetic studies and we're even providing how you are not... Can I continue talking, please? Thanks. So as we provided previously, again, it's not a two-quay because it adds to the claim that I'm making. I'm not saying, hey, look, how could you say this when you guys are doing? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have provided that the Palestinians are indigenous to the land, and now I'm providing you that the Jews are not indigenous to the land in accordance with your own scripture. You're not indigenous to the land. There is a study that directly even provides for it, and I've sent it in side chat. You were clearly not here to come discuss it, obviously. But we've even showed how even when it comes to just simply put genetic phenotypes, that all of the individuals in Israel, have a higher susceptibility to skin cancer, which is not a trait of a Semite. These are not the traits of individuals who are indigenous to that region. They are not indigenous to that region.
Did you miss my definition of indigenous?
Sorry, just one of the Sorry, you go ahead.
You missed the definition of indigenous, which is why when people say indigenous, what they mean is the right to live in the land. And what that generally is defined as is something like you have, for the last few hundred years, been living in the land. Not that you have a genetic phenotype that can be proved out in study to be from the land, because nobody, this isn't what I'm talking about. This is why genetic studies can't prove it. Genetic studies can't prove where somebody's was in the year 1900 or where somebody's descendants were in the year 1900. They can prove where people in the 1900s originate from in terms of their ancestry, which is what you said before, but that's irrelevant to the question. The question is to where, like, no, not yet. There were Arabs in the land from the 7th century. Yes, we agree. There were Arabs in the land from the 7th century. This is irrelevant to my question because these Arabs generally didn't remain in the land. The population was declining, according to the US consul to Jerusalem, at the year 1880 for the previous decades. This is only to say that in what exists now in Palestine is that there are a majority of Palestinians who descend from areas outside of the land, at least in the recent years. That's my only claim. Nothing to do with geneticists.
Okay, again, you've already misappropriated the definition that we gave. You said indigenous does not mean native to the land. It means you just moved in there. I don't know what type of
that's not what I said.
book you're reading in order to reach
that's
that
not
conclusion.
What I said. That's
but
not
the
what
word
I said.
indigenous means originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, i.e., native. Are the Jews native to that land? No, they're not. Geneticists have directly said in the study, which you're just saying impossible, 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 but not actually bothering to read the study.
Can I respond to him lying about me? Is this allowed?
Hello, I'm talking. Do you not hear me talking?
Yeah, I said I'd interrupt you if you lied about me.
Hey, one at a time. Okay, I'm sorry.
So with regards to the definition of indigenous, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it has the following two that are applicable: originating or occurring naturally in a particular place. I
just can't make my point, I guess.
Or native, and so I'll let you make this point. And then or the other definition would be inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists.
Okay, so just to clarify, the argument being made is that because Jews invaded, because Jews.
Don't interrupt. You can call it his lies after.
We got about a minute and a half, so
yes, go ahead. Make it fast.
I'll be very quick. So, to put it simply, we've provided the study. What we're telling you is to address the material of the study. What you're doing is just saying, "Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible." Nope. According to me, it's impossible. I told you, listen, we don't care if it's according to you, it's impossible or not. You are a nobody. Go check the study and refute the study. Yeah. If you cannot provide a refutation to that study, your argument falls apart. It doesn't matter what words you spew out of your mouth. You need to refute the study.
Unfortunately, the case is that you've actually misread the study. So I'm having a look at the study that you specifically put in, the origin of Palestinians and their genetic relatedness to with other Mediterranean populations. Your specific claim is that that Jews are not genetically from this area. The comparison with other Mediterranean populations by using neighbor joining dendrograms and correspondence analyses reveal that Palestinians are genetically very close to Jews and other Middle East populations, including Turks. It goes on to say that archaeological and genetic data support both Jews and Palestinians came from the ancient Canaanites, who exclusively mixed with Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Anatolian people in ancient times. Thus, Palestinian-Jewish rivalry is based on cultural and religious, but not genetic differences. So I don't know why you'd link this.
Okay.
The reason being, good.
Yeah, the reason being is because you said it yourself in the study. This is what I mean when I say you read certain words and then it just flies over your head. It told you that it's from the Mediterranean populace. The Jews were not in the Mediterranean populace. That's the whole point. Do you guys not claim that you were dispersed?
It's saying that the genetic differences aren't sufficient.
Are you guys?
1 second. Kamikaze.
Can I finish? Were you not? Do you not claim that they have been dispersed all over Europe? What the hell does that have to do with the Anatolian side? We're not saying that there was no Jews there. We're saying the Jews here today are not indigenous to the land. Netanyahu, there isn't a single Semitic blood in him. If we give him a DNA test, he'd go back to some Polish father and a Polish mother who ended up converting to Judaism. So the idea is that the Palestinians were there, the Palestinians who were there, and the individuals who were there mixed with the Mediterranean side that go back to the Canaanites. Now you're missing the point. Why? Because what I'm telling you is that there is an issue. What is the issue? Remember when I asked Elijah, what is Joshua most notable for? And he dismissed it, acting like he doesn't know what Joshua is notable for. In Deuteronomy, Joshua was went and ordered to fight the Canaanites. If the Palestinians descend from the Canaanites and the Jews fought the Canaanites, that means the Palestinians are the indigenous ones, and the Jews literally went, killed the Canaanites, mixed with them on the basis of raping them, and then said, oh, we're indigenous too. We're saying this is wrong, because if, let's assume that the Jews never attacked the Canaanites, that study would never include the Jews to begin with. That's the point that I'm making.
Okay, one, your own study disagrees with you, claiming both Jewish and Palestinian indigeneity. Two, you have to pick the standard for indigeneity. Either your standard is the one in which we're talking about geneticism, in which case your own reading of your study is wrong, or it's a standard in which we're talking about fathers and grandfathers, which was the one that I tried to do before, but you eschewed it.
Okay, so we're pretty much done with the 10 minutes. Just to be on the fair side.
Debating or moderating? I'm confused.
Yeah, because
I gave us 10 minutes for this section.
Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys agree with those 10 minutes?
Yeah, no, I agree with it. It's just odd to have one of the debaters doing the timing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if we want to extend this another 2 minutes and like 1 minute per closing, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm
just it's completely okay. It's just weird.
It's fine. You're confused on why you were taking time.
Okay, moderation went and prayed. Another moderator stepped in. Moderation came back before the 10 minutes.
Was there ever a point at which there wasn't a moderator? Because I noticed that he announced his re-entry like 10 minutes before you said that.
Bro, Elijah, there was a guy named
of Beirut.
Thomas.
Okay, I told him I have the timer on.
Stop. That's irrelevant. We can just continue.
Yeah, exactly. It's really irrelevant.
Let the moderator do what the moderator is doing. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I had to go. I'm back now. There was another moderator in my place for a little bit, but you then kept the timer. You guys already agreed 10 minutes, right? There's no bias,
next topic we can. If you want to continue this topic, we can. It's up to y'all.
I'm sorry, I missed that. 2 people were talking at once.
I'm saying the 10 minutes for the discussion about indigeneity are over. Just to be fair,
yeah,
like we timed it. Okay, so we'll move on, and maybe we can talk about indigeneity another time, and we have our sources cited. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into October 7th, the actions of Hamas, and the analysis of that, as well as the justification, and then the analysis of the Gaza war.
This is 10 minutes, by the way, right?
I'm going to open this since I haven't talked much in the last few minutes. Regarding the October 7th incident, we are obviously going to be taking the side that is justifiable and that is primarily going to be identifiable as a hostage operation that went south in one way, not necessarily by means of Al-Qassam directly, which also led to the tragedies that we see today throughout the Gaza war. That's pretty much what we're going to roll with as far as what we identify it as. We refute and defend most of the allegations against Hamas's alleged terrorism. We refute the rape allegations, the intent or the quote-unquote genocidal intent by Hamas to target systematically civilians. And we have sources to back this all up by way of IDF spokespeople, Israeli media sources, and Israeli civilian testimony on that day, as well as the treatment of hostages as of today and since then.
Okay, so the very definition of the reason that Hamas went to war specifically and the goals is in contrast to international law. We get to go back to the initial claim, one of the other sources that you provided that you clearly haven't read. Hostages are persons who, irrespective of their status, have been detained under circumstances in which death or injury to themselves or those close to them or continued unlawful detention is threatened in order to compel a third party, in this case Israel, to do or to abstain from doing any act in exchange for the release or safety of the hostage or others threatened. This is your source. Under international law, this is a war crime, and there is no justification for war crimes.
I do see ethical and moral justification regarding the actions. I'm not going to really discuss the legality behind the hostage taking. I'm really giving a justification that taking hostages is completely ethical in this scenario, considering the circumstances that the people in Gaza were in. And in regards to the treatment of them, we clearly see no sort of negligent or terrorist or hostile-like treatment. As sad as it is for you guys, every single Israeli in the hands of Hamas, or that could have been apprehended or that was taken, is a bargaining chip against that government in order to blackmail it for the interest of the Palestinians that they deserve. So forget the legality aspect. I don't hold international law as some sort of gold standard. I'll defend it where I can. But in regards to hostage taking, that's not my area of expertise. I believe it's completely justified for a nation and group of people who's being oppressed to fight a country that has been consistently breaking international law by breaking international law itself.
So I absolutely agree. In regards to the fact that people who are engaged in international armed conflicts absolutely have the right to to continue those international armed conflicts. That's absolutely okay. The issue is when it comes down to attacking and killing innocent civilians, people who are not part of that international conflict. And you sort of brush away the fact that it's not only Israelis who suffered at the hands of Hamas. It was also internationals who were in the region at the time. The very famous German girl who was at the concert, who was killed by Hamas, suffered at the hands of Hamas. We have many examples of people of all races, religions, and creed who suffered at the hands of Hamas, who have never served in the IDF. They've not got no real association with Israel, except for they were there at the time. These actions are obviously not justified. Furthermore, it is obviously not justifiable to summarily execute people who have been taken hostage and who pose no threat to the people around them. And this is also something that Hamas partook in.
Yeah. So unfortunately for the Zionist PR, there is literally zero proof to support the claim that Hamas systematically targeted and terrorized civilians. We have numerous.
Did I say that?
Well, I hope that's not what you're claiming, because what you're saying is that.
Did I say that? But I'm just asking, did I say that? Could you please respond to what I said, not something someone else said at some point?
No, I'm going to give you what you told me. You told me that there is a case in which other foreign nationals suffered at the hands of Hamas, correct?
Yes.
They weren't foreign. The German girl was an active. By the way, I just want to show you the disingenuous of these disingenuous tactics of these Zionists. The German girl wasn't just German. She had dual citizenship. She was conscripted by the IDF. As a matter of fact, she was literally in the middle of her 2-year tenure. What are you talking about, dude? Get your information right.
That's called a foreign national, yeah.
So no, he said several internationals have been attacked. I
No,
said they aren't internationals. Well, it's in the the recording. It's in the recording. When the time comes, right? We'll just show you it in the recording. So
she's also
with that being said,
she's also an international.
So with that being said,
because she's not.
With that being said, Elijah, please stop, right? Because you do this thing where when I talk, right, it's almost like a switch goes off in your head, like it's time to interrupt.
No, you lie and then I interrupt.
Okay, Elijah, we already established you can't do that during a process. Like, you just can't do that during a dialogue. You can call it as lies after. No, continue, Jad.
So can you please continue to have this? Yeah.
Right. So be careful, Jed. He might call you a terrorist sympathizer because you decided to actually be fair. So
I'm sorry, I've not called anyone a terrorist sympathizer.
So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Elijah yet again in the middle of me exposing the double standards that they maintain. Again, to me, it seems very egregious when the opposition proceeds to claim that Hamas has acted in this certain manner, which is unacceptable, despite them being oppressed for 80 years. I've presented this argument before. If you proceed to oppress a group of people for the past 100 years, present apartheid-based policies against them, slaughter them, cause massacres, kill them, rape them, displace them from their homes, and then you get one smidgen of fighting back, one single war crime in the face of thousands of war crimes, which are convicted against Israel in accordance with the same UN you were clinging to earlier, right? They'll turn around and they'll proceed to cry, wolf. Oh my God, look what they did. October 7th, terrorist attack. It's our version of 9/11. No, it isn't. You were oppressing people. It's not your version of... It wasn't your version of 9/11 because America was not oppressing. Stop. America was not oppressing and systematically butchering a bunch of the people that attacked them. That's a terrorist attack. Now, when it comes to Hamas, the action would be justified on the pretense that you guys have been oppressing them for the past year. So I'm saying, just as you are to be blaming Hamas for their actions of war crimes, I'm saying be consistent and call Israel a terroristic group for committing worse war crimes and heinous, disgusting acts against these same individuals that they're calling terrorists. Be consistent in your position.
So, real quick, the ICJ judgment that you were referring to, could you just link that?
Yeah, sure, of course. I linked that already, by the way. All you have to do is scroll up. This is proof that you haven't been paying attention.
No, see, proof that you're not paying attention is that neither me nor Kamikaze have the ability to link in the Israel-Palestine chat. You keep on accusing us of not sending sources. That would be not paying attention.
You guys can't link anything there?
Okay.
No.
Oh,
you have the Media Plus rule.
Pardon?
No, but they can't text in that chat. That's the thing.
Can you guys text in that chat?
No.
Can Kamikaze text in that chat?
No, I don't think they can. If you guys have any sources right now, give them to me and I'll send it in there.
No, hold on.
Any claims I've made.
I'm just intrigued. Can you just take me to, because the ICJ does a really, really good job at publicizing all documents with regards to ongoing cases, obviously the judicial arm of the UN. I'd just be interested to see the specific ICJ case you were referring to when you said the UN has prosecuted.
Yeah, here it is. I'll repost it again. Right. So if you take a look at the ICJ, they went and they accused.
This is the Times of Israel. This isn't from the ICJ.
Do you want the ICJ itself? Here it is. We'll get the ICJ ruling. Right, but what I'm showing is Israel themselves acknowledging this occurred. But okay, that's fine. You want. I understand. You want news that is utterly not biased. I understand the Times of Israel is indeed a Zionist publication, and they tend to lie a lot. I understand.
Well, no, it's not about. No,
it's okay. It's okay, Kamikaze. It's okay,
the concern here is that I get the feeling this is referring to something that was not a not conviction or anything like this. You're giving too much strength to the claim that you're making.
Sure, here it is. Let me show you this. We'll pull it out right here. Let's pull it out. ICJ conviction.
Also, as I was saying, right now, if you guys want to send me sources, Kamikaze and Elijah, I'll post them for you. I didn't know that you guys didn't have crimes.
Sure, whenever I make a claim, if you want a source, I'll provide.
Yeah, just tell me to check my DMs or something. I got you.
Okay.
Here it is. Here you go, my friend. South Africa versus Israel. It's crazy that South Africa.
This is in its preliminary stages. What are you talking about? There's no conviction here. This is in its preliminary stages. All that has been ascertained at this point is that there is a plausible right to be that South Africa is suggesting.
Scroll down.
What do you mean?
Because the joint declaration of judges. Relax. One sec. Because I just want to show you. How this guy.
He just wanted you to source it. He just wanted you to source it. Just let Kamikaze analyze the source and go through it.
This specific case, I have read every single document regarding this specific case up to present day. This specific case has obviously been no conclusion, no findings of wrongdoing. In fact, there's been no point where the court has been asked to make determinations on whether or not a genocide has occurred or something like this. There's been no point thus far. We're not there, unfortunately. We're just not there. When it comes down to this, the orders that have been made have been orders to protect the potential, the plausible rights alleged to exist by South Africa. But these plausible rights would also be found for any group of people, regardless of whether or not a genocide is occurring against them or not.
Okay, so again, I just want to show you that how dishonest he first said, "Oh, this is in its preliminary stages," and now that I was about to show him, he quickly switched up his energy.
No, it's still in its preliminary stages. Everything I just talked about is preliminary stages.
Can you not interrupt me, because I'm about to prove you're wrong. I'm going to show you why you haven't been paying attention at all, which is self-explanatory from a Zionist individual like yourself, from a Zionist sympathizer. Who's not interested in the truth, is interested in pushing an agenda. So take a look at what I posted. Can you shut up, Elijah, for a second? So if you take a look, moderator, Jed.
Stop, Elijah, just stay quiet.
Thanks. So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Elijah on the pretense that he doesn't want me to actually expose his apartheid state, his apartheid Nazi state, Israel. If you take a look, I'm going to repeat it.
I'm just going to
repeat it one more time. Look, the more you talk, I'll just go straight back to point one, and you'll sit there and you'll be forced to listen to it. So again, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by the Nazi sympathizing individual who is in support of the Israeli state. I'll repeat it. It is very, very clear that they've not been paying attention. He says it's in its preliminary stages. I just sent the joint declaration of Judges Zub, Brandt, Gomez Robledo, and Taladi, who actually concluded the case. All he had to do was scroll down. But he doesn't like scrolling down, right? just like he doesn't like scrolling through the evidence channel. Now, with that being said, we've posted it. Yeah, the joint declaration. He says it's in its preliminary stages. The judges already signed their declaration.
So, hold on. These are declarations of provisional measures.
Let me read.
These are declarations of provisional measures that are assigned at the preliminary stages.
Kamikaze, let him just recite his last point, and that's it. Jihadist, make your last point.
Yep. So again, let's read. It directly tells you. Yeah. Let's read. He says in 7, right, and the 8. Look what he says, because he says it's preliminary stages. Let's read the wording. In 8, he already says we agree with the factual finding of the court, but it's preliminary stages. But the court has already concluded the finding. But that's okay, because clearly he doesn't know international law. On premise 7, it says the following, right? He says in order 26 January 2024, the court determined that the Palestinians appear to constitute a distinct national, ethnical, racial, and religious group. Remember the Article 2 that I mentioned of the Genocide Convention. A protected group within the meaning of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which Kamikaze had the audacity to deny, and now when he's appealing to the ICJ, they spit right back in his face by saying they do quantify under the Genocide Convention. Where it says, moreover, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip form a substantial part of the protected group, order of 26 January 2024, paragraph 45, the court further found that some of the rights claimed by South Africa, for which it is seeking protection, are plausible. Such plausible rights, in essence, bear on the fundamental right of the Palestinian people to existence. Then it goes on to say, Israel is the occupying power in the Gaza Strip. It controls Gaza's land border and all of its land crossing, as well as its air and maritime areas. Israel's dominant control over the Gaza explains why Israel has the primary responsibility, which Kamikaze
I don't disagree with any of this.
Seemed so hinged to deny. At the beginning,
so
remember, for everyone that's I'm almost done. But he's interrupting. So remember at the beginning when he denied, he said, no, Palestine doesn't fall under the Article 2. They do not fall under it's not a genocide. It's not a genocide. When I showed him the joint declaration. Now he's saying, no, I didn't say that. I never said that. Well, no problem. We'll let the recording speak. For now, I'll shut my mouth. For now, I'll shut my mouth.
I get to respond. He continues to lie about me.
Listen.
This is insane.
One second, Kamikaze. By the way, the time is up, but Kamikaze and Elijah, I'm going to let you make your final point, and then we can move on to the conclusion.
All of the things that just got read out there go towards the point specifically that I was making. Specifically, the point is that the court found that there is a plausible right. You wouldn't have a plausible right if you weren't one of the groups elucidated in the Genocide Convention. The reason why this is specifically said in the actual ruling that was passed down, specifically that they were not asked at this stage in the proceedings to have a look at any of the facts of the matter. The question is only, is there a plausible right to protection under the Genocide Convention? This exists for literally every group of people. That is ethnical group, a religious, or actually maybe not a religious group, I'll call back on that one, ethnical group, racial group, etc. In the world. They all have the plausible right to be protected under the Genocide Convention. And this is all that was being said in what Gigi was reading out. It is disingenuous to suggest that this is a ruling on the basis of the facts, that there is a genocide occurring. If that were the case, there wouldn't be an ongoing situation in front of the court.
Can I get one quote, one point?
Right, listen, Elijah, just make your, because I know you've been wanting to talk for a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and follow up after Elijah. Go ahead and make your point.
Okay, yeah, then since Yazan hasn't been speaking, we can just make that the final point then. Then we can go on to the conclusion.
Elijah, go ahead.
There was a counter written by judges that opposed the ruling. The judges that opposed the ruling wrote in the report, quote, "We agree with the finding of the court. In our opinion, however, the court's factual findings should have led it to decide that Israel must suspend military operations in such a way so as to give full effect under its will. Much to our regret, the measure indicated in paragraph 2b does not extend far enough to make the point explicitly." I put a quote in the Israel-Palestine chat. This is to say that Israel has not been found to be committing genocide. If it was found to be committing genocide, the ICJ would have had no choice but to order Israel to halt its military operations. This is to say that this decision has already been made. It is to miss it's to have not read the report, frankly.
Was that it?
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, I'll try to talk quickly.
Okay, Yazan, this is
so I'm
the
going to go
final
ahead and
point,
jump into
and
the
then we're going to
next
go into conclusions.
point here that I want to. Actually, I want to question both of you. Do either of you, for example, make the claim that Hamas's operation was that of a terrorist-like act from October 7th that is unjustified completely, apart from international law?
International law is the neutral standard.
Say that again?
International law is the neutral standard.
International law being the neutral standard. So how do you, for example, propose a nation of people that have been, particularly in Gaza?
You missed my answer. I don't like the question because international law is the neutral standard. So you say apart from international law, I say you can't have this discussion apart from international law because international law is the neutral standard by which we can use to judge these things.
No, that's no problem at all. But the thing is if your country abided by international law, we'd actually be able to have a fair discussion. Yeah, if the country that you're taking the side of abided by international law, we could actually have a discussion. But I don't see why a nation of people that's been under such conditions for the last 80 years ought to follow international law with a society that does not. Up to 65 condemnations per year by the United Nations. We have statistics here on the people of Gaza prior to October 7th. We have Hamas's open declaration to a proper two-state solution as of 2017. We have open statements from Hamas pre-October 7th, in the midst of October 7th, and post up till today, demanding, for example, a peaceful solution. As of today, demanding that the ceasefire ensues in order to finally come to the table and also to release the hostages. Right? Israel is not really, engaging in some sort of a diplomacy-like system where it'll actually answer the diplomatic, calls made by Hamas prior to October 7th, leaving Hamas in Gaza zero room for negotiation in a peaceful manner. We have up to 81% of the population below the poverty line, 66% of the population unemployed. We have obviously the average majority of the population consisting of ages below 18. With regards to the power plants, sovereignty, water stations, anything that you can think of that would actually help this nation succeed, Israel has systematically brutalized and destroyed such attempts to create some sort of prosperity amongst this nation. It's basically a zero economy land. Money that comes in is actually effectively useless due to the lack of capability in certain terms of importing and exporting goods.
This is the question we were discussing before, because you keep on saying, referring to the 65 years and then saying Israel is a violation of international law, is violating international law. And then
hold on, Elijah, move up to your mic. Move up to your mic. We can't hear you.
Am I better?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay, so you keep on referring to this sort of block of 65 laws that you said. You're saying Israel is violating international law explicitly, and then we dug into one of those, and I reckon this would happen if we dug into the last one. And it didn't turn out to be quite nearly as explicit as you say, shall we say. We can do a debate about conditions in Gaza, but that's not what we're doing right now. Conditions in Gaza as of... Yep, sorry.
Can that be the final point? That's it? Can we just go on to
the 65? I'm not talking about the 65 discriminatory laws in the Israeli state against the Palestinians.
Can we go on to the conclusion?
The 65, which ironically is the same number, 65 condemnations of Israel from the United Nations.
Okay, can we go on to the conclusions now?
Can I just get the final point in that you offered me?
Whatever. That's it. No one's
really difficult.
No back and forth. Just that's it.
Okay, so you said that Gaza is in terrible conditions because Israel is oppressing. Let's take three standards that are generally used by which countries are judged as regarding the standard of living in their countries. Let's take life expectancy of Earth, undefined infant mortality, and undefined mortality and just infant mortality in general. Look at life expectancy. The life expectancy in Gaza as of 2023 was 73 years, which is well above the global average if you want to look at it in global terms. If you look at infant mortality, it's something like 50 per 100,000 as of 2021. The global average was 28. This puts it above the global average. There isn't hardly if you take the global averages, there isn't hardly a standard by which you could say Gaza isn't marginally above the global average. This doesn't look like the conditions of a prison camp based on all the data, aside from the fact that it's assiduously claimed to be a prison camp by people who have political interest in the affairs of the Middle East. I'll put the sources in chat.
Yeah, send me the...
So from what I'm collecting from what you said, it's still very difficult to hear you. You're saying that the living conditions in Gaza actually...
Hold on, that was... I'm sorry. Hold on, Yazan.
We said that
Listen
was
to the moderator.
Yeah, we said that was the last point. We have to, bro, we've been like past time and we need to go into the conclusion. Yeah, we have to go into the conclusions. But Elijah, send me, or Elijah and Kamikaze.
Speaking right now.
Yeah, Yazan, I definitely... I understand the frustration there. I really do. But if you respond, he's going to want to respond.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to go back and forth. Because Yazan, you're supposed to have the final point.
Did you understand him,
Kamikaze? For the most part, his mic is horrific.
Yeah, his mic is kind of hard to understand. But Elijah,
why did you ask for moderator exactly?
Because I'm saying that we have to go into the conclusions. Like, we can't just keep going back and forth on this point. But Elijah, send me the sources you want to send me. Kamikaze, send me the sources if you have any on this point, and I'll post them for you.
Hello.
I don't know if I don't know if I can. Oh, he can. What the hell? Oh, he did it himself. Never mind.
Either that or Joester finally woke up and gave him it.
Okay. So we're going to move on to conclusion.
We unfortunately cannot give rules, so that's the problem. So we couldn't just do it on point.
Yeah. Wait, Yazan, can you hear me, by the way? I don't think Yazan can hear me, but...
Yazan, can you hear Saint Jad?
Yeah.
I don't hear him speaking right now.
He
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Jad, say something.
Yo, can you hear me?
No, okay. I have my stream open for the debate, but I can't actually hear him directly. 1 second, I'm gonna leave him.
Yeah, because I was telling him to stop. I don't know if he's like... Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
Alright, cool. Because I was like talking to you like the whole time, and you just kept going. But
sorry.
Yeah, we need to move on to the conclusions or the closing statement. It's gonna be 12 minutes, 3 minutes each, and we're gonna start off with Elijah. Or we can start off with anyone else. Doesn't matter.
Elijah, you there, man?
Is he muted? No, he's not there.
He is muted. But like by him.
Yeah. You can start with Kamikaze.
I mean, I'm willing to conclude.
Yeah, go ahead. 3 minutes.
I think something that's become painfully obvious during this debate is that the other side is willing to post things that they haven't read. It's incredibly unfortunate. Furthermore, it is also obvious that it's quite difficult to read things in a way that is sufficient for comprehension for some people. At the end of the day, I do encourage everyone in the audience to, when you're making arguments on the basis of international law, to go and have a look at the actual international law. Actually have a look at the way in which these things are written. Really try and divorce your brain from the way you want to read terms. Instead, really consider what it is that the international law is saying, and hopefully what will happen is these two camps will come together a bit more on these questions of fact, and hopefully we end up with a good solution in the Middle East.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right, Elijah, you there? Yazan, Yazan or Jihadist? You guys want to take over 3 minutes?
Jihadist, go ahead. You're before me anyways.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think I do agree with one thing, and that there was one thing that was painfully obvious, is that there was a lot of switching in terms of the answers that I've gotten. We went from, at the start, saying that they're agnostic on the matter, to them suddenly switching their sides, and they're no longer agnostic on the matter. We went from the Deir Yassin massacre being a massacre to not being a massacre. We went from define discrimination, and then turns out when discrimination disagrees with you, you end up not being able to make the point. Not a single one of our studies have been directly addressed. Rather, anything that has been addressed to it was just simply put, words beyond measure. In other words, just simply saying, oh, it's not true, or oh, I don't like it, or oh, it's impossible, and there isn't any actual study of the material that we provided. The third thing that I've tend to notice is that they generally give advice that they themselves cannot act upon. For example, when Kamikaze specifically said, and the opponents tried to argue, that Palestine does not fall under the second article of the genocide. Kamikaze first denied in the recording, and I'm sure anyone who would be listening, they'd be listening on YouTube, since this is the conclusion after all. They'd very clearly hear Kamikaze say, "No, I deny any genocide happened. I'm agnostic on the fact as to whether it's a genocide." When we sent him the ICJ ruling, he immediately conceded that there's a genocide. But the entire time, he was refusing to call Israel a genocidal state. This, to me, seems to indicate the opponent's positions being inconsistent. Clearly, there was not enough evidence that they sent, or they have not clearly delved into the topic as much as me and my debate partner Yazan have delved into it, considering not a lot of our claims have been addressed. All we've seen is some wishy-washy claims and dismissals of the studies that we've provided for the sake of word salads. We've seen filibustering. We've seen interruptions, and not any actual responses to any of the claims we made. All in all, I do think that we did provide something fruitful, and that is to the audience to show how, generally put, the opposition, when it comes to the ones that defend Zionism, clearly are at a loss. And when it comes to their debate angle, they seem to not even be aware of what they are defending.
Is that it?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah. Elijah, you can go.
Okay, so I'd like to start the final speech of this debate by taking some time to address the accusations of Kamikaze. Unfortunately, Kamikaze did not say it was a genocide, and nowhere in his recording. You'd like to refer to the recording, just refer back to the finding.
Elijah, we can't hear you.
Elijah, it's really hard to
Elijah, you can't just restart and lean further forward.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk directly into my mic. I'd like to start by taking the closing speech of this debate, in order to address some of the accusations made against my debate partner, Kamikaze. Firstly, you cannot show anywhere in the recording, nor will you be able to answer the debate that says where he claims that there was a genocide. It would be different to have debate, but that would rely on the opposing side sources, which unfortunately they have done. My debate partner, Kamikaze, throughout this debate has quoted different sources, and stumbling.
It's very hard to understand you again.
Is it? No?
It's just hard to understand you.
Okay. Kamikaze has been reading your own sources throughout this debate. Your own sources disagreeing. Keep on saying to point to us to point to scholars, particularly Bruce, saying that for us to point to scholars that would agree with us, you seem to be unable to point to scholars that agree with you. All you're able to do is come up with scholars that like put forward scholars and links whenever they're investigating this to not say what in fact you claim to be saying. It's a shame that jihadists should think that about Zionists and our debating. It seems that the debating tactic used throughout this debate is little more debating tactic used by most pro-Palestinians historically when I've debated them, which is lie and well, we make a claim, you lie about it, then you talk for 10 minutes, and then you make an accusation against us, which turns out not to be true, and then you provide a link which doesn't verify the claim you just made, disagrees with your own very claims, as he quoted you. So I'm sorry this debate was go this way. I didn't intend for it. In a sense, I'm glad people got to see your true colours. I yield my time.
All right, Yazan, you have 3 minutes. Wait.
All right, just to close this all off before Q&A, I want to, of course, thank everyone for coming out to watch. I want to thank the moderators for sticking around in this lengthy debate. Barakallah fikum, setting this up as well. This never goes unnoticed. And of course, we keep Brother Abdul Rahman in our prayers for not being able to make it due to some extreme circumstances last minute. We also thank Brother Jihadist for, as always, performing astoundingly and stepping up to the plate, inshallah, last minute. And then, of course, to wrap this all up, there's never enough time to discuss this conflict, to be honest. There's always more material ahead. I feel like, alhamdulillah, we posted our sources and backed up each and every one of our claims. Definitely more that could be talked about, and many technical difficulties. And of course, Elijah was not able to make it here on time. Mr. Weinstein, you were late. That will be taken into account. But regardless, alhamdulillah, it was a great debate. I believe we have proven that the state was founded upon terrorism and ethnic cleansing, despite the lack of acknowledgement from our opponents. I believe that the state has founded as an apartheid regime, and it continues to enact the same acts of South Africa and even potentially worse. We are fully capable and reasonable enough to justify the actions of Hamas and the Mujahideen in Gaza, as well as continue to justify their actions in the course of the Gaza war today. Alhamdulillah, I believe we did a great job. And please, everybody look through the sources that we've posted in the VC text, which not only discuss the ridiculous and preposterous claims of indigeneity of the Palestinians and that being refuted, but also the alleged war crimes beyond hostage taking that our opponents have tried to propose. Once again, I thank everybody for coming out. Alhamdulillah ala kulli shay. And thank you for everybody for coming out.
All right, now we're gonna do a 15-minute Q&A. We can do like, one each.
Can we run? It's like 2:30 for me. Can we run like 15 minutes?
I didn't hear what you said. Do you guys want to cut off the Q&A?
No, I'm happy to do it. I just need it to be like 15 minutes. It's nearly 2:30.
Okay.
I like saying 15 minutes.
Just 15 minutes?
Okay. I have to pray for
Yeah.
5 minutes, so any questions directed at me, if you could just save them until I'm back, because I need to go pray.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Do you guys want the people to come up, or do you prefer it being through chat, or do you guys prefer like both?
Whatever's quickest.
It's probably quicker. We could probably get more in if it's through chat, and then you can read it out.
Okay, I'll read it out then. Yeah, that's fine. And if you guys have any questions, we can start with Kamikaze and Elijah. It'll be both. One of them answers, or honestly, just whatever question you guys want directed at any. And by the way, ping the person you want me to talk to or talk about. Put it in the slides there. Okay, question for Yazan. Is Hamas an Iranian proxy?
No, I would not call Hamas an Iranian proxy, albeit they do get a lot of their arms from Iran or Iran. They are definitely not an Iranian proxy, as they are definitely independent, were an organization prior, and remain an organization irrespective of the goals and interests of Iran. An example of an Iranian proxy would be, for example, the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, with that being said, Hamas does operate independently regardless of what Iran's goals and interests are, and there's merely just a temporary benefit for a larger issue at hand as of now. And the person who asked that is a troll anyways.
Just to clarify, Hamas were an organization prior to Iran, that's your claim?
Okay, Elijah, this isn't like a...
Oh, like sorry.
This is a Q&A. If you guys have any contentions with this, you guys can have like an informal discussion after the debate, or after the stage is over.
Sorry, my bad.
Question for Kamikaze. Do you agree that Israel is terrorist?
It's sort of a it's a misuse of words. To say that an organization is terrorist, I think would be not accurate. My specific statement would be that individual people can be terrorists. They can commit the war crime of terrorism as individuals. It is far more when we look at organizations that put the word terrorist onto larger groups of people, they tend to broaden the definition of terrorist. So they'll do things like exclude, only include non-state actors, etc. So I just don't agree with the use of the word in that context.
Question for Elijah and Kamikaze again. What is your preferred outcome for the war? Any of you guys can answer this.
Yeah, I can take it if you want.
Yeah, if you want.
My preferred outcome to the war is that Hamas is destroyed and then there's a temporary administrative government of non-Israeli act. I don't want Israel in the region afterwards. Sort of coalition of preferably Arab states in the region that would form an administrative government that would exclude Hamas.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you.
I want Israel to win and then Hamas to be taken off the table, and then Israel to leave and allow the government of comparative Arab states, surrounding Arab states, to form a government that excludes them.
Right. Question for Jihadist and or Yazan. How did the original Jews lose their ethnicity after migrating around the world? And if it is because they lost their religion and married non-Jews, can you please provide any sources?
I'll let Jihadist take this one.
Okay, I'll go. So What I'm saying is the opposite. What I'm saying is that the Jews themselves do not have any form of ethnic background to that land. And what I mean by this is that it's in accords with what they believe themselves. They cannot come and say, as Jews, we belong to this land, when, you know, and I'll post it here in side chat for you, they don't even believe they owned that land to begin with. It was a bunch of Canaanites. They came and slaughtered them and then took their place. That doesn't make you native to the land. That just makes you someone who came, kicked out the original people, and then settled in, just as they are doing to the Palestinians. What I'm saying is just as it's extremely ironic that the Canaanites themselves were the ancestors of the Palestinians. And so it's just simply put, what I'm pointing out is that what's been happening to the Canaanites is now just happening to the Palestinians again. But this time, instead of it being for the sake of Yahweh, it's now for the sake of Netanyahu.
All right, is that it? Next question for Elijah and Kamikaze. I didn't get a clear position. Do you guys acknowledge what happened at Deir Yassin? Massacre includes massacring men, children, women, stripping them, putting them into trucks, and Jews dumped 150 bodies into a cistern in order to hide the horrors and mutilation committed by them. And do you condemn their actions?
There was a book recently written about the subject called The Massacre that Never Was, which I refer people to on the question. When it comes to condemning Israel, there were particular deaths which were clearly criminal. But when it comes to condemnation of Deir Yassin as a whole, we'd like to go through individual people, as the book that I refer you to does, go through individual cases of all 107. It might also reject this 250 number that was an original guesstimate. It was an original estimate that didn't turn out to be true.
Is that it?
Yep.
Right,
it was 107 villages at this point.
Right. Question for Jihadist. Can an Ash'ari ta'wil the Israel out of it? Okay, I'm joking. Where's this question? Okay, for Jihadist.
No.
Okay, for Jihadist, for the rest of the people, would you mind expanding on 1867 and the agenda of the Zionist Congress and relate it to the modern period? And can you expand upon the implications?
1897 or 1857.
Anyways.
Yeah, so it's referring to the first Zionist Congress, right, which took place in August 29 to 31, 1897, right, in the city of Beirut. Yes, so expanding on it, it is very clear that from the start, their delegations and their agenda and all of their opening speeches, namely the following individuals that I'm about to name, people like Mayor Ebner, Bingham Amrain, and Theodore Herzl, who have unanimously came in and they fully agreed, and even Mordecai Ehrenpress, who went over and quite literally said they want to seek, as a home in Palestine by the virtue of violence. They themselves admit this. In the goal that is secured under public law, or is commonly referred to as the Basel program, they adopted the following terms, right? They said, they expedite promotion of the settlement of Jewish agriculturists, artisans, and businessmen in Palestine. So they wanted to overtake the land by virtue of increasing their agriculture, artisans, and businessmen. So they never had an intention to come settle alongside. They wanted to take them and overpower the Palestinians utilizing these things, and that's realistically what happened. Second thing, the organization and bringing it together of all Jews through local and general events, according to the laws of various countries, right? They wanted to bring everyone who was just a Jew into this area forcibly to maintain the very first premise that they put out. And I want you to notice why the first premise is not the second one. It's listed as the primary goal. So the primary goal is going to be the first one, and the primary goal is to simply put, forcibly overtake the Palestinians. And then comes in, but we also need all the Jews in the world to do this thing. The strengthening of Jewish feeling and national consciousness. I never really understood what's Jewish feeling. Okay, I don't think there's an emotion called Jewishness. And as for the national consciousness of what? If they are meant to be living alongside the Palestinians. Well, they expand on it. And 4, it says preparatory steps for obtaining the governmental approval which is necessary to the achievement of the Zionist purpose, which they proceeded to found the following thing: the foundation of the Zionist organization, the Basel program, which is listed above, the absorption of the most previous Hovevei Zion societies, the suggestion for the establishment of a people's bank, and the election of Herzl as the president of the Zionist organization, and Max Nordau as one of the principals. And then he says the following: were I to sum up the Basel Congress in a word, which I shall guard against pronouncing publicly, it will be this: at Basel, I found the Jewish state. If I said this out loud today, I would be greeted by universal laughter. In 5 years, perhaps, and certainly in 50 years, everyone shall perceive it. So he said, if I go out in public and I tell you guys that we are going to forcibly overtake the Palestinians, scheme them in businesses, forcibly kick them out by utilizing our agricultural settlers, do all of these things, everyone would laugh at me, and laugh at him they did. And 50 years later, when it all came true and they actually began committing war crimes, there's one thing that didn't change. We're still laughing at them today.
Jihadist,
is this something for us all to respond to?
No, you can respond. This is only a Q&A, so you can respond if you guys want to.
No, I mean just a question.
A question to Jihadist?
Yeah, I thought you said
no.
the question. Okay, sorry. I thought you were
if you guys want to have
some
sort of informal dialogue after this the stage, you guys can. Okay, question for Kamikaze. Kamikaze, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want Palestine to coexist with Israel, or do you want Israel to control the entire land, including what is known as Palestine?
So I want whatever solution ends up peacefully and respects the rights of effectively all citizens in that land, whether they be citizens of Palestine or citizens of Israel. There are so many different potential conclusions that might happen in this conflict. It could be that we end up with one state. I think it's unlikely and incredibly unlikely that would be able to protect the rights of each individual. But like obviously, I want like Palestinian peoples and Israeli peoples to be able to live harmoniously. I think it's obvious that that's the case.
All right, I'm not really seeing any questions for Jihadist or Yazan right now. Or Hamza, is this? Oh, that was you, the one that Hamza made? Okay.
Yep.
So even the original Jews that lived in the Canaan region were originally from Egypt. If yes, in other words, it means that there were no original Jews in the Canaan region. Palestine anyways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, this went from, from Joshua's invasion of the Canaanites, which is why I listed him earlier. This isn't in accords with me. This is in accords with the God that Elijah worships. He tells him he doesn't belong in that land. He tells him this is just a promised land for you. There are people already living there. And under Moses, they were afraid to fight them. So they waited for Joshua. And then when Joshua came and he led them after Moses' death, he went and they slaughtered them. And it directly says it very clearly. Not even animals were spared. So as far as I'm concerned, before Israel even existed, they always had a genocidal intent for that region. First against the Canaanites, and now the Palestinians.
Am I allowed to sort out lies about the Torah? Is that a thing that I can respond to?
No, you can't. You can't respond. This is a Q&A.
Elijah, we're gonna definitely get into an informal debate as soon as possible.
Informal debate. You guys want?
I can't do it because it's 2:30. I have to be up at 7:30.
Elijah. Look, Elijah. I understand you disagree with a lot of what they're saying, but this is a Q&A. This debate, the stage has been dragged on for a really long time. Just let the Q&A keep on how it is. Like,
okay.
I don't know if maybe Kamikaze would want to have an informal discussion with them after. It's their choice, whatever. I don't care. Okay, question for Kamikaze though. Why do you guys think Palestinians embrace violent resistance?
It's multivariate. There's a genuine, deep-held belief amongst many Palestinians that violence resistance is the way in which you get to what they would consider be a just solution. I think this is incredibly misguided, but obviously there's disagreement amongst that. But yeah, I think that's probably the reason. They think that it's going to be efficacious.
All right. Question for Elijah: do you condemn Israel putting a caloric limit on the Gazans?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, the answer is I need to look more at the case. So I've read a little bit about it, and the answer I think is yes. But when it comes to the amount of food getting into Gaza, it certainly wasn't insufficient quantity in order to sustain the Gaza population. So if you just look at the number of trucks getting in per day, for instance, even during the war, you have enough trucks that it would feed the average American diet in terms of quantity of food. If you were to just look at the 70% of the supplies getting were food. So I'd have to look more at the specific. The answer is I don't really know, but kind of yes, I would condemn it.
Okay.
Jed, I don't want to. Just this 1 second. This is for Joe. To Elijah and Kamikaze. I should take the second. Also, the other people in the audience. The server is offering people to have their own designated VCs where they have some powers that are limited, of course, but somewhat moderation style. Elijah, there's already a VC that's kind of dedicated to like the Israeli issue and support of like held by Israelis. If you'd like your own VC dedicated to this, which has a large audience consistently, of course, you're more than welcome to. Same with Kamikaze, where you guys could both share moderation powers. There's one called Free Shekels. That's kind of like, led by a Zionist or an Israeli. But if you guys would like your own, of course, and then it goes same to the audience, as long as you have a following and a major topic, definitely recommend it. And this brings a lot of traction and attention to topics at hand.
Okay, well, time's quite up for me. It's about 2:40 where I am.
No.
Yeah.
This, like the whole
Look,
thing.
we very much appreciate the offer, and we can talk about it further later if you want.
Yeah, this is something you guys have to talk about further. Yeah, or like later after.
No, I really appreciate the offer, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening.
Okay, we only have like 2 minutes left of the Q&As. Question for Yazan and Jihadist. If Hamas gets control of Palestine, how sure can you be that they will not retaliate the same way Israel does?
I'll answer on this one. So, regards to Hamas's intent and overall its trajectory, if it were to gain control of Palestine, we can see with the behavior of Hamas post 2015, 2017, change of charter, change of politicians and diplomacy. Hamas is more than willing to negotiate and get to the table in a diplomatic manner, and it is more than willing to abide by the Islamic rules of war and engagement. So I would have zero doubt of Hamas's capability of leading the land peacefully, whether it gains control of the territories today that are identified as Palestinian occupied territories or the totality of the land, which I would have no issue with them controlling either. They clearly have engaged in humane conduct with their hostages. They have engaged in humane conduct on October 7th in the heat of the moment. We have testimony that we've posted for this and proof with video evidence. And that's a small snippet within a larger snapshot. However, I see no evidence or no reason to doubt the capability of Hamas in controlling the land, both for Muslims, Jews, and Christians and other ethnicities as well, when it comes to sovereignty and just overall like running a government.
Oh, sorry, just to intervene, I think Elijah's time has run out, just to be clear.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like Kamikaze, because I just have one final question, so I don't really see any other questions for you guys, but I personally have a question to you. So you mentioned earlier that you would say that Mandela is a terrorist because he violated international law, but then you also admitted that the illegal settlements of Israel are illegal and violate international law.
Sorry, just to clarify, I understand the question. Just to clarify, it's not that he violated international law. You can violate international law without being a terrorist. It's just specifically violating international law by doing terrorism, which is specifically defined in international law. It's I believe it's the Hague Convention.
Okay, thank you. That kind of just made a distinction. That was towards my question. Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for moderating the debate. It's been a little more less light than I intended. But
no problem.
thank you very much. I'd be interested in doing this again, possibly at some point.
Yeah, you guys can also the offer
I'm
by
very
VC
sorry.
also.
I'm very sorry to make this evening.
No problem.
Good night.
Night.
We'll start a GoFundMe as well, Elijah, for your new mic. Maybe we'll get the Rothschild.
No, I'd like to likewise thank you guys for your time and your ears and your mouths. Thank you very, very much for having this conversation.
No problem.
Thank you very much for being here.
Appreciate your presence.
Have a good one, guys.
Question for Joester: why are you so obese?
Yeah.
Dude,
question for Joester: can I deflower you?
Everyone, look at that! Look at the edits in the side chat.
So everyone, check the side chat or the chat you're texting in. We'll all be there in this VC. So go there and.
Wallahi, we cooked them. Wallahi, we cooked them differently. It was a massacre. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Where's Jihadist?
Yo, we need to give a medal of honor to Jihadist.
Listen, they bought. Oh, I came in within 10 seconds.
Nah, yes, we're gonna give him the keys to Jerusalem.
But if anybody wants anything, just DM me. I'll send you the evidences if you guys want. I'll send you all the evidence. Yeah, bro. He backtracked about 7 times.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. We need to celebrate. 1 second.
Post-debate analysis.
Here it is. You want post-debate analysis? I've got it right here, ya habibi. Look at side chat. This is the post-debate analysis. Hold on. Post-debate analysis. Here it is.
You had the center address. We're gonna send you a medal of honor, bro.
Bro, that was so bad, bro. Almost more than 3 hours, bro. More than 3 hours.
Yo, Jad, why didn't you ask my question though, bro?
Yazan halfway through had enough, dude. You got like
Dude. Bro, Allah, I couldn't, bro.
Bro, this is was so bad. I couldn't handle it, bro. It was horrible.
Bro.
This is probably the hardest edit I've ever seen in my life. Hold on. This one right here, this is like the hardest edit I've seen. Let me show you. The other guy, dude, I didn't even hear.
Yeah, he was too quiet. He was under the tongue.
Oh, his mic was
This is the most fire edit I've seen in my life, dude.
The jihadists asked you that question because it's the basis of their belief. So if you basically refute that, then they don't have anything to stand on.
Bro, they made horrible arguments, man. Bro, wallahi Adam, dude, they made horrible arguments. The guy literally went. Everyone was there. Everyone there. I just want to confirm. So I'm not the crazy guy, right? In the beginning, did he not deny that a genocide happened? And then later on, he straight up admitted that a genocide did happen.
That's built to be about 4 or 5 times. And the excuse was we can't post.
Yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, about that. Wait, I want to clarify something. The Kamikaze guy can post, but the other guy Elijah can't because he was not here, so I didn't give him permission. It's only them. So yeah, so that was not an excuse really. He was able to post.
Gigi. It's awfully selfish.
Yeah, I have some like 3 questions. If you can help me.
Yeah, if it's to do with the topic, yeah.
Yeah, with the topic. First of all, is there Hamas in the West Bank, and can you please explain it in deeply or specifically how it is there?
Wait, what the historical argument against the Canaanites? Yeah.
No, I'm asking, is there Hamas in the West Bank?
Yeah, in the form of the parliament, yeah, but not in terms of military.
There were a couple of operations, skirmishes between settlers and opposition, but not an actual group of Hamas fighters.
What?
You have to remember, in the north, right, you still have the Palestine and Israel Jihadist working there, right, the PIJ.
Gigi.
Yo, brother, my name is Jihadist. You could call me Jihadist. You don't always
Jihad. My bad. Is it true that